In one day, 15 years ago, our world was turned upside down and changed forever. There were rifts, magical portals from which demons came out, but also a system of levels and abilities so that people could protect themselves. People who protect our world from demons began to be called adventurers. Adventurers choose their own style to fight demons. These are called classes. Sorcerers are very slow and have difficulty controlling magic. This class is considered to be too weak and helpless against demons. Our main character's name is Charles. He chose a class with high ease, a thief. It seemed to him that, to begin with, it was necessary to gain more experience and improve survival skills. Over time, he gained an incredible amount of experience and became one of the strongest adventurers. He was nicknamed the Sword of Divine Speed. Every year, the rifts became bigger and appeared more often, but Charles believed that he could protect people and this world from demons. He was not the only one who had such a desire. Many other adventurers also did their best to save the world. But one day something unexpected happened. Charles was informed that he was being excluded from the list of the Sword of Fame. Charles did not understand why this happened and began to ask many questions, but he was answered that he himself should know the reasons. Each year, the level of monsters increases. Now, Charles's attacks are ineffective against high-ranked monsters. Lacking support and recovery skills, the Divine Speed Sword became a burden to adventurers. The times when thieves were very strong and necessary are long gone. The world is changing fast. He was informed that now thieves will only be useful for extracting materials from low-level monsters. Against the strongest demons, it will be more useful to have a sorcerer in the group who can deal real damage to opponents. Also, the guild decided to deprive Charles of rank C, because the new rifts are much stronger than the previous ones. He could not believe that this really happened. Charles had risked his life many times, and now he is being thrown away like garbage. Even though he has lost his battle prowess, he is still one of the strongest adventurers in the field of poison. Mark was one of the guild members. He looked at Charles and said he had one request. It was encouraging. Charles thought that he would be entrusted with something important. But Mark asked to pretend that they no longer knew each other. It was a painful blow for the boy. He took risks and gave all his strength for the sake of others for so many years, and now he realized that he was useless. Charles became depressed. He did not leave the house, smoked a lot, and drank alcohol. He spent his entire life working as an adventurer, thinking he would always fight demons for his country. And after all these sacrifices, he was thrown away like trash, which is hard for even a strong warrior to accept. Charles noticed that he began to lag behind others, so he spent a lot on consumables. He spent all the money on various magic potions and equipment, and now he has nothing left. Now he won't be able to earn from cleaning high-ranked rifts because the guild stripped him of his rank. According to the news, he heard that the Sword of Glory was sent to a neighboring country. They managed to conquer the rift of the Dark Estate. It was hard to watch his team continue to succeed without him. He opened the comments and saw that people remembered him, but someone wrote that Charles was always a ballast for the team. This made the boy very angry. Yesterday he was a hero and the leader of the team, and today he is called ballast. He thought that he made a mistake with the choice of class. If he sells all the equipment and potions, then he can live for a few more months. But there were memories in his eyes, memories of those glorious days of victories and universal recognition. Tears appeared in his eyes. He spent his whole life on this team. It causes him terrible pain. Charles lay down on the bed and began to think about what he should do next, and so far, there were almost no ideas. He received an urgent message on his phone saying that an S-class monster had appeared in the city center, and he needed to hide immediately. Charles thought that it looked quite strange. The S-class monster appeared at the exact moment when the Sword of Glory is not in the country. He understood that there are no more strong adventurers in this city who can defeat this monster. Charles began to think. He understood that it would also be difficult for him to defeat this monster. But he also knew that this was his chance to declare himself and show that he was prematurely deprived of rank C, and that he is still capable of much more. An S-class monster is a real test for every adventurer. Such demons are not to be trifled with. The slightest mistake can cost lives. Charles was happy that he did not have time to sell his equipment and immediately set out to meet the monster. It will not be easy for him. In front of him is the time dragon Kronos, a rather pathetic name for a demon. Charles asked him to remember this day because it would be his last. The guy ran into the attack with hopes that he could use his vast experience and defeat a strong opponent. Charles understood that the inhabitants of the city were evacuated, and he only needed to hold out until the arrival of other adventurers. Although the plan looked quite simple, In real life, everything is much more difficult, especially when you are fighting a time dragon. This giant attacked with fire and his sharp claws. It was difficult to dodge all of his fast attacks. Charles understood that his opponent was too fast and felt it on his own body. It seems that our hero started having problems. Having missed several dangerous attacks from the dragon, the boy began to doubt whether it was necessary to come here. Kronos looked very confident, his white armor glinting in the sun and adding to his majesty. Charles understood that with such an opponent one must always keep his distance and threw a poisonous sickle at him. This attack did nothing. The boy understands that it will be difficult to pierce the skin of the dragon, but he hoped that he would succeed. They have two different levels. If Charles did not specialize in speed, he would have died a long time ago, so the situation is very difficult. The guy realized that he had no other options but to go all in and use the Thief's Claws. Thief's Claw is one of the skills of this class. Thanks to this attack, the thief can steal an item from the opponent. Such a serious demon must have very powerful items. Charles hoped he could get a powerful weapon if he was lucky. But the demon turned out to be too strong. It began to rapidly attack and seriously wounded the boy in the chest area. It seems that the thief's cunning plan was foiled. It is better for him to stay in the apartment and watch series on Netflix. His eyes began to darken. Is this really the end of the glorious warrior, and now his story will end so easily? They were always called heroes, but today he could only hold on for a few minutes. He is too weak. Charles thought that if he could survive, he would certainly become stronger and saw an interesting object in his hand. At first, he didn't understand what it was. Did he get this item with the help of a thief's claw attack? This is the mythical dial of the god of time. It allows you to turn back time by 10 years. When used, the item will disappear from all timelines. Charles first heard about mythic class items. At first, he thought it was some kind of joke the dragon played on him. But Kronos looked very serious and wanted to finish off the wounded opponent. Charles had almost no time left. The guy realized that there is no point in thinking and decided to try to use this mythical, mysterious gift. A second before the Dragon Claw's fatal attack, Charles activated a mythical item and attempted to turn back time. After that, a huge dragon claw pierced through his body, but the question is, did the time dial have time to work? These were strange feelings. The boy did not understand whether he was dead or alive. It was quite uncomfortable. A little later, he opened his eyes and realized that he was lying in bed in his apartment. He had not yet seen that he had become 10 years younger. He immediately took the watch and made sure that the time had really changed, but so far it seemed to him that it was only a dream. He went to the window and opened the curtains to see what was happening outside the window. Then he took out his phone and made sure that it was really 2030. It seemed almost impossible. He immediately remembered that the mythical class time god's dial allows you to go back 10 years. He decided to check his battle class and saw that he had no class, so he really did go back in time. He succeeded. Charles confidently promised himself this time to become the strongest adventurer in the world. Now, there were completely different realities in this world. Ordinary people were very scared because of the rifts and demons. Levels and sizes of monsters are constantly growing, and on TV, they constantly said that this could become a real disaster for humanity. Charles was quickly convinced that he was really in the world of 10 years ago. This is a unique feeling. In the future, there won't be so much talk about faults. The point was that people should have a high level. Charles understood that by returning to the past, he received an incredible advantage over others. Now he needs to get as much experience and rare items as possible. Knowledge is his main weapon. But first, of course, he must get the adventurer class. For this, you need to rise to the 10th level. There are special rifts for low-level adventurers who have not yet received a class. These faults are not cleared and are under control. Charles immediately realized that this was an ideal opportunity to level up. He decided to go to the first F-rank rift, the Goblin Cave, to try to get the 6th level. He was not one of those who ran in these rifts and raised his level in the hope of getting a class. There were other promising warriors who fell asleep with dreams of waking up as adventurers one day. One of these was an O'Hara, a level 16 two-handed sword warrior who helps newcomers to this rift. He said that it is dangerous to hunt monsters alone. Goblins can surround, and then it will be difficult to get out of this rift. Usually people called O'Hara a guide. Charles thought he didn't look like a bad guy. O'Hara said that the company had heavy losses due to problems with faults, and therefore he decided to become a conductor. This man thought that the work of a guide is a great hobby and additional income. Charles soon continued to destroy the goblins and was able to get to the 10th level very quickly. He got 6 experience points and 2 skill points for it, which is a pretty good start for a young talent. This talkative guide immediately greeted the new friend and said that Charles is learning and progressing very quickly. O'Hara believed that Charles could become a great adventurer. He did not know that the owner of the S-class was in front of him. O'Hara said that by rising to the 10th level, you can get a class, and Charles should definitely think carefully about the future choice. The guide said that he could always give advice, but he hardly had more experience than an experienced adventurer. The class you will get depends on your abilities and characteristics. Skills can be bought with points. O'Hara advised Charles to choose the warrior class and promised to teach him many tricks and techniques. Although, after analyzing the boy, he admitted that the class of thief is more suitable for him, as if he was born for this. O'Hara was too talkative. He kept talking to Charles and asking him a million questions. He asked the boy if he knew how to get a class, as if he himself was the most professional adventurer. He also wondered if Charles had been taught in class to activate acceleration and amplification. The skills of acceleration and strengthening increase the physical parameters of the adventurer. You can call it a base. Of course, these skills are very important, but in order to become the strongest adventurer, it is better not to spend skill points on this. Charles thought all evening and realized what he needed now. O'Hara started screaming and asked him not to do it. Charles purchased softfall for 5 points. It reduces fall damage and increases gravity resistance. O'Hara considered it an unnecessary skill that could be needed in few places. There are too few high places around to use this. The man decided to give some more advice to the boy. It seems that Charles did not hear him at all and continued to improve the softfall skill by spending his points. O'Hara was incredibly angry because the boy spent all the points on a softfall. It seemed absurd to him. O'Hara thought that with such abilities, only the swordsman or peasant class would suit a boy now. He was even more surprised when Charles finally chose his class. He said he would be a gravity master. It was a hidden class. The gravity master only appears when all points are used for the softfall skill. It was found much later due to the strict conditions of appearance. Even after its discovery, no one wanted to choose this class due to weak abilities. Even after 10 years, no one has solved the secret of this class, but Charles understood the essence of gravity when he was a rank adventurer. Gravity Master is the strongest class possible. O'Hara tried to stop the boy and talk him into becoming a swordsman. But it was impossible to do. This is exactly what Charles wanted. He confirmed his choice and became a master of gravity. He immediately gained the skill of gravity magic and gravity control, which is the basis of this class. Charles looked very satisfied and happy. All his experience told him that this was the right choice. With this class, he will definitely be able to become the strongest adventurer in the world. This time, he will definitely take a different path. O'Hara approached the boy and said that the magic class was not very suitable for him. He still could not come to terms with the fact that Charles did not listen to him. He said that there is a high probability that Charles will not be able to live long. With such a class, it is difficult to fight demons. The man had tears in his eyes and said that the boy had better not become an adventurer. At this time, melee classes are considered to be much stronger than others. This conversation ended unexpectedly because strange things began to happen in this rift. Next to Charles in the guide appeared a demon, a red cap of the 17th level, a real test for every warrior. O'Hara was very scared. Monsters of such a high level should not appear in this place. This is some kind of anomaly. O'Hara was in this place because he was not sure of his strength in real combat. He saw that around him were young adventurers of no more than 10th level. It was necessary to urgently save their lives. O'Hara realized that this was his prime time. He ordered Charles to flee with the others and promised to distract this monster. Charles saw what was happening and realized that O'Hara would not be able to defeat the Red Hood. This monster is too strong for the guide. If you do not urgently intervene in this battle, the leader may retire early. O'Hara is not used to fighting opponents of his level or even higher level. He is an ordinary guide and can only destroy weak demons. O'Hara began to scream and call for help from adventurers above level 15, but so far no one came to his aid. It was clear that he would not be able to defeat such a strong opponent. One mistake, and he would be dead. Charles watched this with the other adventurers. He thought he couldn't help because his level was too low right now. The boy felt it very well. He could not even clearly see the Red Hood's movements. His gravity magic is too weak, and he doesn't know that much about his abilities. At that moment, Charles remembered the first meeting with the O'Hara, when this experienced guide tried to save him from danger. The boy realized that he could not leave such a good boy to his own devices. During this time, he managed to fall in love with O'Hara. It's time to use your sword and abilities to protect your friend. As soon as the conductor saw that Charles was trying to help him, he began to shout and stop him. He believed that they would both die now. O'Hara said that Charles' magic class is too weak. With such a difference in strength, he will die quickly. As always, the boy almost did not listen to the guide. He looked at the red cap and said that now he will test his new powers on him. He is ready to risk his second life to find out what the stronger class is capable of. If you don't defeat the Red Riding Hood now, there is hardly any chance to escape, so it's an all-in game. The demon immediately switched its attention to the young boy and ran to attack. It was time for decisive action. The weak point of magical classes is the lack of physical ability. Sorcerers are highly dependent on the help of other classes. But Gravity Master is not like that. He can improve physical parameters in exchange for mana. Charles began to control his gravitational force and weaken the gravity around him. The real magic began. O'Hara watched his friend as if bewitched and did not understand how he was moving so fast. Charles immediately reduced the gravity and thus accelerated his movements. A brilliant decision in a critical situation. The movements of everyone around have become much more predictable, which can be used to an advantage during combat. It doesn't matter what your opponent does if you can read his future moves. The Red Cap did not yet understand that his end was approaching with the speed of light. He was sure that he would easily kill this arrogant boy. He did not know that in his past life, Charles had won more than 1,000 battles, using only his own speed. O'Hara couldn't believe his eyes. Using a low-level magic class, Charles was able to injure the Red Hood. Gravity Master is a special class with high physical stats due to mana control. In the early stages, the monster's movements are too predictable. With speed, you can easily dodge the demon's attacks. Having mastered the required skill, the potential of the Gravity Master class reaches incredible heights. Everyone around understood that they had a future legend in front of them. The boy's confidence was at an incredible level. Charles looked at his friend and ordered him to attack the Red Hood. At first, the experienced guide started to worry, but then he got a hold of himself and trusted his instincts. He took out his sword and ran to attack. At this moment, he looked like a real predator attacking his prey. In vain, the Red Cap turned his back on Charles. The boy immediately activated the gravity chains. Little Red Riding Hood realized belatedly that this pack of low-ranking adventurers was actually too dangerous. It was too late to run away because after 2 seconds, O'Hara sent this demon to hell. 28 experience points and a level up to 12 were received for defeating the monster. Charles was satisfied. With the Gravity Master class, he could definitely become the strongest adventurer in the world. Other young adventurers looked at him with delight. They did not understand how a novice could defeat the Red Cap. O'Hara couldn't do any damage to this monster, and Charles, with his low level, was able to defeat the demon. Fantastic! It seems that this guy is also a monster in some sense, and he doesn't even realize it. Charles looked at him and did not understand who he was. Even the word genius does not fit his description. Charles immediately felt weak. He used all his mana to activate the Gravity Master skill. At this moment, it was difficult for him to even move a finger. In the future, this nuance should be corrected. And O'Hara immediately approached the boy, thanked him for saving him, and offered help. Charles was pleased to hear words of gratitude. He hadn't felt like a real hero who could save others for a long time. Besides O'Hara, there were many other low-level adventurers, all of whom were saved. The guide thanked his friend not only for saving him, but also for helping him overcome fear. O'Hara always lacks the courage to fight strong monsters, so he always hunts only lower demons. Now that Charles has helped him take a step forward, it's time to end the role of guide. O'Hara was happy that he personally managed to see the birth of a new legend. Winged by the victory over fear, O'Hara took his savior in his arms and helped him. A few days passed, Charles learned what his gravity magic was capable of, and now it was time to level up. But it will be difficult to do it alone, so you need to find a temporary team. Not everyone around has heard of the Gravity Master class. No wonder, because it is a hidden class. The Gravity Master was known to be a magical class with low characteristics. When Charles said he was looking for a team, he was looked at as a fool who couldn't fight real monsters. At the moment, there are several available low-ranking teams that may interest Charles. The guy asked to see these commands, but the woman replied that his characteristics were too low and he might have difficulties. Charles looked upset. He has a rare and unknown class. One should have expected such a reception. The guy asked to give him an opportunity to talk with the heads of these teams. Adventurer Jack entered the room. He heard that the registrar had problems and asked Charles not to be so intrusive. Charles immediately asked the boy who he was. Jack pretended that he was a world-famous superstar. Then this cocky boy said that he was the leader of a famous group of Thunder Knights. Jack has a warrior class. He also said that magic classes are not needed. This was said to insult Charles. He started mocking him and said that magic classes were created for those who are afraid to be around demons. That is why, in his opinion, Wizards cannot be called adventurers. He said that Charles should regret the wrong choice. According to him, Charles has a very rare class with low stats. Jack said that his class is also rare, but he can achieve greatness, unlike Charles. This self-confident boy liked to show off his talents and decided to show the power of lightning. This is a very rare class with high stats and strong skills. Jack was happy he chose this option. Everyone around started talking about Jack. People appreciated his talent and called him a future professional adventurer. The registrar said that using skills is forbidden in the guild, but Jack reassured her and said that he only showed his power to a newbie. He looked at Charles and said that they were not going to take the garbage to themselves and explained that no one would take their team to a stranger. He believed that Charles behaved like a fool. Adventurers are not volunteers to help everyone. Charles knew well that the Thunder Knight is a class that specializes in attack, but it has slow movements and difficult implementation of abilities. It should be very weak against an opponent who specializes in speed or against those who can defend against lightning. Meanwhile, everyone mocked Charles. They found it funny that a weak wizard of a low class was trying to get into the team. Everyone wanted to get the Thunder Knight class. Rumor has it that high starting stats are required to get this class. Charles understood that not much time had passed since the first rift appeared. Maybe he was better off alone until he earned the trust of others. Charles completely forgot what was before when the emphasis was on effective abilities and high characteristics. He returned to the registrar and said that he had changed his mind and decided to be alone for now. Jack smiled and said that Charles had better forget about the idea of becoming an adventurer and try to stay alive. Charles did not pay much attention to him at all and did not get angry. He thanked him for the advice and left. Now he decided to go to the room where the archives of the Adventurers Guild are kept. He understands that in order to win the trust of others, a temporary team will not be enough. It is better to find people with whom you can create a full-fledged group and remember the importance of compatibility with his gravitational abilities. The boy also thought that it was necessary to raise the combat level and earn some achievements. He was able to defeat the Red Hood without problems because the movements of low-level monsters are too predictable. Charles has figured out how to use the forces of gravity. Maybe now we need to level up and go to high-level rifts? Studying the archives, he realized that the best rift for him at the moment is the 25th level stone temple. This rift is created to increase the level and loot of stones and is under the control of the guild. In this rift, statues appear that are very easy to defeat. If you are an average hunter, it will not be difficult. This rift is like a dungeon for beginners. If Charles hunts alone, he will be able to gather a team faster. Now he is at the 12th level, which is not much, and he urgently needs to increase his qualifications. Charles wondered, as he leveled up in the stone temple, would he be able to find classes suitable for his abilities? He decided not to wait and immediately go to the crack of the stone temple. But this was not a children's room for fun. Even the most talented adventurers failed here. Only for the talents of true talent it can be easy, but for everyone else, it is not an easy test. The stone statues look like monsters from horror movies. Even Charles will have a hard time fighting them. The registrar was surprised that a boy at the 12th level wanted to go to the stone temple. It seemed crazy to her. Charles said that he had read the rules carefully and there was nothing illegal about it. Jessica knew this, but warned the boy that he was going to die because the recommended level for this fault is 25. She warned that the fault lines are not stable and very serious opponents can meet there. Charles was not worried at all and said that everything would be fine. He would look around and be right back. You can't get stronger without taking risks. Charles has to defeat strong monsters to increase his level. He got to the stone temple and promised himself that he would not stay here for long. The boy understood that it was enough for him to defeat at least one monster to increase his level. The stone statues were very cunning and treacherous. One careless step and you could lose your head. But all these tricks were too cheap for the former S-class adventurer. Seeing the opponent of the 20th level, Charles thought that it would not be difficult for him to defeat this monster. Although the stone statue tried to cut off his head, the boy easily dodged and showed that he was on another level. He was smiling and showed no signs of excitement at all. We are in for a real master class from a young master. Charles activated gravity relaxation, a skill he had trained in the previous duel. He already knew how to fight and what to do in conditions of weakened gravity, unlike his opponent. Even with this level, the stone statue is still an easy opponent. Charles can see through all his movements. The boy instantly got close and started attacking with his sword. It was a filigree technique. The brick statue was able to withstand the boy's attacks. This stone man is quite strong, but only good at defense. Looks like round 2 is about to start now. The brick man is hungry for revenge and is coming forward. It looks quite strange. Even knowing that Charles is much faster, he still flies into the attack without thinking. Charles weakened the surrounding gravity again to demonstrate his technique. But now he used a new trick. After weakening the gravity, he immediately doubled the surrounding gravity. The brickman could not cope with this false maneuver. He did not have time to dodge the boy's attack at all. Charles instantly cut him in two. Even concrete could not withstand the attack of this talented boy. His plan worked, reducing the pressure and accelerating before the final strike. A very powerful attack came out. Charles immediately gained 28 experience points and increased his level to 16. In addition, he received 8 skill points. The boy was satisfied with his journey to the stone temple. He immediately decided to upgrade his fighting skills. He wanted to gain gravity magic and gravity control. But there is one problem. Now he only has enough points to upgrade one skill, so he decided to choose gravity control. 10 points were spent on improving gravity control to level 2. It looks like it will now be able to control the direction of the pressure and not just change the weight. A pretty significant improvement. Depending on the use, this can provide serious advantages in different circumstances. Charles was satisfied. He had achieved what he wanted and was about to return to the real world, but something stopped him. He found the demon core, a magical stone that would be enough to confirm his victory over the brick statue. The boy was already ready to return, but realized that he still had a lot of mana left. He decided to test his new ability against other brick statues. The party is just getting started. Meanwhile, not only was he destroying the brick statues, Jack was also doing the same with a lightning strike. It looked pretty effective. Despite his long tongue, this guy really knows how to fight. His friends were proud of his success. To destroy such a monster with one blow is quite an achievement. Even with protection from lightning, it will be difficult to resist Jack. The guy said that he doesn't notice the protection of the brick statues. It feels like it's just a training fault. Jack is now level 26. He said that they are not leveling up so fast anymore, and it is time to move on to more complex rifts. Kira reminded him of the sorcerer from the guild. She thought that Jack was too harsh in communicating with this newcomer. The guy smiled and replied that he was talking as usual and wanted only good for this loser. He explained that this sorcerer could easily die if he still decided to go into the rift, so it's better not to get your hopes up. Jack heard strange sounds and thought that another group of brick statues was preparing to attack them. Destroying these brick men has already become a routine for their team. It is not even exciting anymore. Kira asked him to stop and said that these sounds were too loud for brick men. Jack replied that even monsters have their own characteristics and asked his partner not to worry. He said that everything will be fine as long as he is around, and at that moment a huge brick statue entered the room. Mark and Kira were immediately frightened. They had never seen such a huge monster in this training rift. This is a level 30 brick statue, and it is much taller and larger than all the other statues in this rift. Kira looked very scared. They are still apprentices and have never fought level 30 demons. Jack said that fighting against weak monsters became too uninteresting. He is a Thunder Knight, and much stronger than other adventurers of his level. The boy said that he was ready to personally fight against this giant and ordered the brick statue to show everything it was capable of. These words angered the brick man. He decided to teach these children a lesson in education. Mark was not sure that her team would be able to destroy this demon, but Jack, as usual, reassured everyone and said that it would be easy. According to him, it doesn't matter the level of the monster because it is still an ordinary brick statue. The movements of these monsters are too slow and predictable. You have to focus on this to win. The stone man began to attack and almost cut off this self-confident boy's leg for these unpleasant words. Jack immediately recognized that their opponent was much faster than he thought, but the gap between his attacks remained the same. Jack understood that it was necessary to take advantage of this and immediately went on the attack. His confidence was enough for 10 lives. By activating his lightning power, he was confident that he would be able to show his opponent the difference in their levels. The brick man was not going to give up easily without a fight and continued to attack the young boy. These pitiful attempts have already begun to bore Jack. He felt that he just needed to get closer to his opponent. But this giant looked too confident. He is clearly different from all the other brick statues with which Jack fought. One of his attacks still hit the target. The boy was very seriously wounded. It seems that now he will finally stop smiling. Jack has never felt such serious strength, although the level of a brick man is above average, but he is still too strong. Seeing that the leader of their team was injured, the other members of the team began to visibly worry. Jack tried to control the process and ordered his friends not to be distracted and to look into the eyes of the enemy. Kira tried to focus and control her emotions, but when the demon approached her, the girl became very scared. He delivered a serious sword strike. It was too powerful for this fragile girl. Mark hastened to help her that she would not be able to last long in the battle with this giant. He wanted to help his friend, but he was helpless against this power and rage. Thus Mark and Kira lost their battle with the demon. Jack looked very scared. He didn't understand what was happening. Before, everything was clear and easy in the training rifts, but now he was facing a real demonic creature. Jack became angry as he felt his own fear. The strongest adventurer cannot be afraid. He gathered all his strength and activated a lightning strike. There was no way out. You have to fight this monster. Having struck this powerful blow, the boy was sure that the strongest skill of the Thunder Knight would be enough for a victory. He thought that now this monster would beg for mercy, but he heard only laughter in response. Jack could not believe his eyes. It seemed completely impossible, something unreal. He remembered how Kira had told him a few minutes ago that even with lightning protection, no one could stand against Jack's power. But now he realized that it turned out to be only words that have no relation to the real world. He could not believe that this is how his own story, the story of the future legend of adventurers, would end. The boy began to cry and scream. He asked the monster to stop because he did not want to die in this place. His sword broken and his friends defeated, he is now like a helpless kitten before a mighty giant. Just yesterday he was incredibly self-confident and arrogant, and today he falls on his knees and begs for mercy. He already asked not to kill him and to leave him alive, and was ready to give anything in return. The huge monster did not listen to the boy at all. He raised his sword and prepared to cut off his head. It is at such critical moments of life that salvation usually comes. The gravity around immediately weakened. Charles came to save the scoundrel, but the demon was against it and decided to kill them both. Charles understood that it would not be easy, but he had already intervened in this situation and fled too late. Jack immediately recognized him. He thought that a newcomer had come to save him, so they were both dead. Charles tried to come up with a plan of action in this predicament. Something extraordinary was needed to defeat this giant. Jack said that Charles had to run away because there was no way he could defeat such a powerful demon. Charles understood this well. He knew that now he too has the 16th level, and his opponent has the 30th level. Their difference in levels is too great. But something must be invented urgently to stay alive. Devouring adventurers and other monsters, this giant was able to evolve into a new, unique state. Charles thought that this guy was too big. He still had a lot of mana left, so he was ready for another fight. Charles took out his sword and said that he didn't want to waste time and offered to go straight to dessert. The huge monster was happy. He was glad that instead of one guy, he could kill two at once. Jack continued to shout and say that Charles would not be able to win. He offered to run immediately and pray. Jack explained that even 3 of them could not defeat this huge monster, so Charles had better not waste his strength. This boy knew how to completely ignore everything that others told him. This was his special talent. He eased his gravity again and prepared to attack, which was exactly what the monster was waiting for. Now the real rock and roll will begin. I bet $100 on Harry Potter. Once the gravity was relaxed, Charles immediately began to use his speed and flexibility. His opponent is too big and slow. The boy took advantage of this and delivered the first sharp blow with the sword. Watching this, Jack couldn't believe that this newbie had a magic class, it seems. He underestimated him in their first meeting. He did not understand where he got such powerful energy and strength. Maybe he is the son of some legendary warrior? Charles, meanwhile, understood that his opponent was too slow. Managing gravity should be enough to win. But he also quickly realized that he wouldn't be able to deal enough damage to his opponent, and that was a problem. The brick statue belongs to the defensive-type monsters. Due to the difference in levels, it received almost no damage. Charles felt that too much of his mana was going into gravity control. You can't wait any longer, you have to act. But the huge brick monster also decided to act. He threw the first blow, but Charles managed to dodge in time and take advantage of his speed advantage. The boy now has no choice but to rely on his last attack. Charles activated all his mana and began to attack with the force of gravity. He thought that it would be easy for him to defeat this giant, but it seems that his defense is much better than he expected. Gravity weakened takes too much mana, but without it he definitely won't be able to defeat the monster. He understood that you can't waste time. You have to do everything to finish off the monster as soon as possible. Charles continued to attack and tried to break through the powerful defenses of the brick statue. It was not easy. The brick giant, although it had weaknesses, was very well protected. The guy tried to find the right tactics and attack weak points. This huge brick man continued to defend skillfully and tried to actively counterattack. If Charles can't find a way to win soon, he'll run out of mana and be in real trouble. Jack did not understand where this newbie got such speed. He thought that wizards did not have such abilities. With the second level of gravity control, Charles gained a new skill and prepared to test it in battle. He gathered all his energy inside himself and activated the gravitational shift. Charles activated the gravitational shift on himself and felt a rather interesting effect. It was time to end this battle. He activated dual gravity and launched a swift attack. With the force of double gravity, it will fall at an incredible speed. This can help. Charles looked very focused, and focused on his opponent. He felt that this was the end. His fall could be compared to the fall of a comet. At first, it seemed that the brick giant remained alive. Everything happened so quickly. But then it became clear that this gravitational comet completely destroyed this brick monster. Thus, Charles received 524 experience points and 14 skill points. His level had been raised to 23, but he looked as if nothing much had happened. Although it was necessary to admit that this young guy defeated an enemy twice as strong as him. For this, he received the soft fall skill of the 3rd level. It reduces the damage from the fall and increases the resistance to gravity. Charles felt too tired and realized that he had spent a lot of mana. Jack still couldn't believe it. He had never seen such incredible power. His legendary lightning strike did not leave even a scratch on the brick statue. He did not expect that of all the people in the world, he would be saved by this guy. He did not understand why Charles decided to come to his rescue. It seemed strange, after all the words Jack had said to him in the guild. Did Charles want revenge and shame him? Jack thought seriously and began to suspect his savior of foul play. But Charles calmly approached him, asked how he was, and offered help. Jack was very surprised. It seems that he began to suspect his savior of bad intentions too soon. He understood that in front of him was a decent and honest person, and thanked him for his help and saved life. Soon, these 2 young and promising warriors returned to the Adventurers Guild. Jessica could not believe that Charles met a brick statue of the 30th level in the gap. It seemed impossible to her. I can imagine the expression on her face when she realized that Charles had defeated this monster. She said that she did not believe the boy. A novice could not defeat a monster of the 30th level on his own. Charles took out the inner core of the monster from his pocket and said that this should be enough to prove his victory. Jessica admitted that it all looked very suspicious, but she had no choice but to record his advances. She asked him if he wanted to sell this stone because it could be worth quite a lot. Meanwhile, Jack approached the boy. He was looking for him to thank him once again for saving him from the fault. He said that he is very glad that Charles came to his aid and wants to tell important news. He looked very happy and said that he wanted Charles to join the Thunder Knights team. Everyone around immediately fell silent. Only special ones were invited to the Thunder Knights. This is the strongest group of newcomers. Jessica was also surprised and excited. It seems that this Charles is not as simple as it seems at first glance. Jack said that Charles is very lucky and others can only dream of such an offer. Everyone around was incredibly surprised when they heard that Charles was refusing this offer. People around were also surprised that Charles turned down the invitation to join the Thunder Knights team. Jack also didn't understand anything. Yesterday, Charles was looking for a team, and today he refuses to join the best. Charles calmly replied that his plans had changed a little since that time. Jack couldn't believe it. The Thunder Knights are the best team of rookie adventurers. They don't refuse an invitation to join it. Charles was calm. If he is going to level up at the same pace, then he should make it in time. In the near future, a new rift should form. A mad theater, a unique item that Charles needs will drop out of it. The guy remembers very well what happened in the past, so this knowledge will help him get this item. The next day, Charles returned to the Adventurers Guild after resting and said that he wanted to sell materials. Jessica was surprised again. It seems this guy was on the hunt again, and again he was doing it alone. Charles said that he wants to apply for a promotion. He wants to become a D-rank adventurer. Adventurers have their own rank system. Starting with rank F, you can rise to rank E. D-plus adventurers can clear true rifts, but this requires at least 25th level. Charles calmly replied that he knew about it, and at the moment he was level 26. Jessica was shocked. She had never seen a newcomer rise in the rankings so quickly. She did not understand how he manages it. He clears the cracks on his own besides having a magic class. Charles replied that he trains a lot and this is enough for rapid progress. His strength is not only determined by class. After all, he was an S-class adventurer. He also has experience and knowledge for 10 years ahead. He wants to raise his level as quickly as possible in order to get the opportunity to enter useful rifts. In addition, he will be able to get tasks more easily, which is good because in the future, there will be a crack, mad theater. In this rift, you can get a unique weapon. In the past, the adventurer who did it became incredibly strong. After that, he became insane and started killing adventurers, so Charles cannot allow such a weapon to fall into the wrong hands. That is why he realized that he needed allies to clear this rift. A large group will only slow him down. You need to carefully choose an ally. One will be enough. It is necessary to find someone who will perfectly combine with gravity magic and have a sufficient skill level. It is also important that he is also single and agrees to Charles's conditions, although there are many of these conditions. The guy doesn't have much time left. He needs to visit other guilds to try to find someone. Charles spent most of the day visiting other guilds in the city. It was already the fourth guild. He began to think about whom to slightly lower the selection criteria. The boy witnessed a conflict in this guild between two beautiful girls. Blonde Linda shouted at Milo and said that she is so stupid that it is hard to believe. Mila asked for forgiveness, but Linda replied that she does not need an apology, and she excludes Mila from the group. According to Linda, Mila didn't try hard enough to demonstrate her level, and for that you can demand monetary compensation. Charles stood silently by and watched this interesting female conflict. He immediately remembered himself in the future, remembered how he experienced a similar situation. But it is better not to interfere because the choice of an ally does not need to be repelled by a feeling of pity and mercy. Meanwhile, the argument continued. Linda called Milo's class useless trash. It was about the shaman class. As soon as Charles heard it, he immediately stopped and became interested. Hearing that Mila chose the shaman class, everyone around her began to pronounce her abandoned work as an adventurer. Meanwhile, Charles realized that the shaman class was ideal for a gravity master. In addition, the shaman's skills will play an important role in the battle with the boss of the crazy theater. Meanwhile, Linda got so angry that she started shouting at Charles and said that he was not invited to this performance. The boy greeted and said that he was a D-rank adventurer who had come to find an ally. Linda was happy and said that they have a free place on the team at the moment and they would not mind if he joins them. Charles did not listen to her at all. He approached Milo and offered her to join the team. Linda could not believe that this guy absolutely did not pay attention to them and offers to unite with this fool. Charles was happy that he was able to find her. He understood that he could not lose such a great chance. Linda said that this girl has an absolutely useless class, and Charles would be better off joining them. Mila said that she would be happy to team up with Charles, but he is a D-rank adventurer, and she is only level 10. The guy said that the problem with the levels can be easily solved. He once again asked to unite, and said that he needed her power. The girl was insecure. She thought that she would interfere with him and thought of leaving her job as an adventurer altogether. Charles asked to give him some time to help Milo regain her self-confidence. The girl looked excited and confused. It was clear that she hesitated before a difficult choice. Still, she agreed and asked her new friend to take care of her. Linda was incredibly angry. She said that wizards were not needed, and she was sure that Charles would regret his choice in the future. He did not pay much attention to it and said that he knows his class much better than everyone else. Weaknesses of shamans can easily be compensated with gravity magic. In addition, her curses will be incredibly useful in the battle with the boss of the insane theater, which is very important. Charles was satisfied. He knew that as long as Milo was by his side, there was no doubt that the weapons from the rift would go to them. The new allies went to the cafe to get to know each other better. Mila told about herself first. She believed that her shaman class was too weak and worried that she might be a burden for the boy. Charles reassured her and said that he also has a magic class, which everyone considers unnecessary. He promised that in a few years everything will change completely and offered to discuss the strategy before the fault appears. Mila agreed and said that she was ready to go to any training fault, but Charles said that it would be a real fault. He explained that this rift will appear soon. It's a level 30 rift called the Insane Theater. Mila was immediately startled. This rift of too high a level scared her a lot. An unknown fault is the exact opposite of a training fault. There is almost no information about such faults. Mila was very worried about her low level, but Charles assured her that he would always help her in a difficult situation. He knows all about these rifts from the books he read in his past life, so they will be well prepared for anything. The guy said that they will be in the same team, and he is sure that they will be able to overcome this gap. He asked Milo to trust him and rely on his knowledge and experience. The girl apologized for the extra questions, but she was very interested to hear about the weapon from this rift. She also did not understand how soon a fault will appear. Mad theater? Charles replied that he could not tell all the details about this mysterious weapon. Let it remain a mystery. Mila was excited. She believed that it was impossible to predict where and when a new fault would appear. As soon as she said these words, the phones of everyone present in the room began to ring loudly. Mila looked excited, but Charles was very calm. It happened. A new rift was discovered in the city. She couldn't believe that they were sitting here on purpose, waiting for this event. Charles said that they would go on a raid tomorrow because during the week, no one would dare to go into this rift without information. After resting, the next day they met and went in search of this vault. Charles immediately saw that the Rift Agency also had a hard time that day. A girl ran up to them and asked these adventurers to wait. It seems she has some message for them. The girl greeted Charles and Milo and asked to find any information about the Rift and his boss. She also said that they must return home alive because it is easy to die in an unknown rift. Charles deliberately said that they only wanted to explore the rift. If he told the truth, they wouldn't be allowed in there. Thus, Mila and Charles entered the rift of the Insane Theater. The most interesting is ahead. Sensing that the girl was worried, Charles apologized for making her follow him. He said that he would fight in the vanguard, and as soon as it became too dangerous, they would immediately begin to retreat. Mila said that she would try her best and fight in melee, and even become a decoy if needed. Thru asked her to calm down and said that her curses would be enough, especially the mana drain. Mana drain is a skill that absorbs the target's magical energy and is great for fighting strong monsters. Also, this skill helps restore allies' mana, which can be incredibly useful for gravity masters. With this skill, you can fight without worrying about losing mana. You can be in the rift more and increase your level. Mila found this ability to be weak and ineffective, and there are many spells that deal more damage to enemies. Charles replied that this was not true. They agreed that he would lure the monsters to himself and Milo would attack them. It's time to check how ready this team is for serious battles. The first test is the 26th level Circus Bear. As soon as Charles was able to lure the monster to himself, Milo immediately activated the Ball of Darkness. The white Circus Bear immediately felt the power of the shaman class. It seems that this girl is not as weak as she says. Charles was pleased with her attack and said that now it was his turn to attack. Now this bear will feel the power of the former S-class adventurer. I hope it will be effective. Charles activated dual gravity and used his sword. It was really beautiful. The Circus Bear was finished, for which the boy received 212 experience points. Mila was not left out either. She got 3 levels of promotion at once, quite a good result for the first fight. She said that she is glad about it, but she still has the feeling that she is some kind of parasite. Charles said that this is nonsense and he really needs her help. It is also important for him that she increases her level because they are allies. The girl was happy to hear these words. She began to feel a strange feeling, which was not the case when she worked with others. She immediately began to smile and said that she would be happy to continue working with Charles. Mila was very insecure and clumsy, but Charles couldn't help her discover her fighting instincts were also well preserved. Now Charles was absolutely sure that he could defeat the boss and get the rare weapon. In a past life, David received this weapon and immediately became one of the most dangerous thieves among adventurers. If he doesn't get the item this time, then history must change for the better, so Charles must do it. David will capture this rift much later, so there should be no problem. At this point, David practiced and fought with others, raising his level. When you fight with this guy, you have to be very careful and protect yourself from a fatal attack. David believes that our world works on the principle of kill or die. This describes him well. He is now at the 37th level, and it has become easier for him to hunt people of the same level than monsters. Meanwhile, Charles and Mila weren't resting either. It was time to reactivate dual gravity. Now they are fighting a killer doll that is on the 27th level. With the help of several victories, they were able to increase their combat skills. Mila is already at level 22. Charles is now at level 27. Mila believed that Charles could fight better if he did everything alone. She felt like a burden. Charles replied that this is not true. At this level, the monsters are not so dangerous and their movements are easy to predict. He once again reminded the girl that sorcerers are a very strong class of adventurers that should not be underestimated. Soon the girl noticed that they had little mana left and offered to return to the real world. Charles completely forgot about it. He boosts his stats with gravity control. If the mana is less than half, then you really need to return to the guild. He smiled strangely, looked at the mill and said that the time has come, but judging by his face, it is unlikely that he means returning to the guild. At this moment, another monster appeared in front of them. It was a 24th level clown goblin, an interesting character. Charles said that the preparation was complete, grabbed the monster by the neck and ordered the mill to drain the mana from it. If you have a mana drain skill and a monster that doesn't move, you can drain mana indefinitely. In addition, thanks to this skill, you can restore mana to your allies. This is how the perfect combination of a shaman and a sorcerer manifests itself. Mila said that she understood the logic of her partner, but she did not want to cause problems for the monster. What a good girl. Charles assured that everything would be fine, and the girl immediately began to suck her mother out of the monster. When the process was completed, Charles said that they should move on. He was satisfied with his assistant. The girl looked a little upset. She felt sorry for this monster. He looked like a mummy. A little later, Mila suggested that her partner begin the process of restoring his mana reserves. She has long since mastered this technique and was able to easily start the process. Everything was painless and quick. Charles was pleased with the cooperation of Milo. His mana quickly recovered from 16 units to 25. Mila thought that this was not enough and the effect was not so strong. It seemed to her that she should have restored mana much better. Charles reassured her and said that for this it was necessary to use only 6 goblins and everything would be fine. The girl was shocked. She could barely stand the mana drain from one monster, and there were 6 more to come. Charles assured that there was nothing wrong with this and said that it would further raise their level. The destruction of goblins continued. They quickly destroyed 6 more goblins and almost completely restored mana. Now, Mila is at level 24, Charles is already at 28. Using this tactic, you can hunt as much as you want and raise your level. But do not rush to restore mana, because if you make a mistake, it can lead to serious consequences. But if you do everything right, then you can get a strong effect and fight even with 100 demons. In one day, Mila was able to raise her level by many steps. It was a fantastic result. The girl was happy because she saw such progress for the first time. Cooperation with Charles had already begun to pay dividends. When training in the guild, they were told that you can't fight monsters of the same level as them or higher. Chaz replied that he didn't think he could learn anything in the guild, but it was impossible to level up without taking risks. Mila watched him as a real teacher. He had already managed to teach her a lot. They had already managed to go deep enough into the rift of the insane theater. It was interesting to me how far they wanted to go. Charles said that they are almost there. This is their goal, the boss of the crazy theater. No one expects the rift to be cleared on the second day, and Charles will be happy to take advantage of that. But he underestimated the uncertainty of the girl. The girl was very scared as soon as she heard that they would have to fight with the boss. Charles offered her to go back if she was so scared, but the girl replied that she was ready for anything. Probably in her head, she immediately remembered how Linda was constantly angry with her because of her constant fears. This went on for many years and took a serious emotional toll on Milo. This became an additional motivation for her to try. It was time to completely change and move forward. She looked at Charles and said that if he needed her strength, he could always count on her. At that moment, he realized that he made the right choice where he took her as his partner. It was time to go to the boss. But Milo had a question about whether Charles's strategy would really work against the insane theater's rift boss. Charles reminded her that the shaman was perfect for the battle against this particular boss, and assured her that everything would go perfectly. They opened the door and went inside. It was very dark around, and almost nothing could be seen. Only took a few more steps forward, they finally saw the boss of the rift of the insane theater. When you imagine a rift boss, the image of a crazy clown of level 35 is unlikely to come to mind. Mila also expected to see something else, but she needs to concentrate and prepare for battle. Charles looked calm and showed almost no emotion. He knew what he came here for and was ready to do anything for the goal. If they can kill the boss of the insane theater, they can finally get a unique weapon from this rift. The guy prepared for the fight and told the sweetie to do everything as they had planned in advance. Until now, they did not know that they were not alone in this room. And David was watching them. It looks like our story is getting a lot more complicated. Either Charles has forgotten what the future holds, or the story has completely changed. Defeating the boss will not be easy in any case, even though they have created a plan, but this crazy clown doesn't care about any plans. Charles and Mila have prepared for battle. Each of them knows well what he must do to win. The guy must first distract the boss's attention so that Mila can take a favorable position. The boss has a rather serious level. It will not be easy to defeat him, so you will have to show all your talents. The crazy clown looked very confident, although it is not clear whether he is laughing because he is confident in his own abilities or because he is a clown. In any case, double gravity was activated, with the help of which Charles will be able to evade the boss's attacks. Mila also did not rest and tried to show all her extraordinary abilities. Mana drain was activated. During this time, Charles was really able to divert the boss's attention to himself and give Milo an opportunity to take an advantageous position. But as soon as she activated the mana drain, the clone immediately noticed her and switched his attention to her. The girl quickly realized that everything did not go according to plan. She could have serious problems after a few seconds. Charles immediately feared for the health of his partner and ordered her to run away quickly. He told her to go as quickly as possible to the gate from which they came here. She needs to stay closer to the center or this giant can get her and break all her bones. The crazy clown was already very close and activated the power of fire. If Mila doesn't speed up, she will turn into a fried steak. The situation was approaching critical. It is difficult to escape from fire, and even more difficult to escape from one's own death. Charles reminded the clown that Mila did not come here alone. He understood that it was time to save his partner. With the help of gravity control, he was able to distract the clown from the girl and deliver several powerful blows to him. Mila watched Charles's skill with pleasure. She had never seen such fast attacks before. The battle continued, and Charles tried to show all his current abilities to defeat his opponent. Of course, his arsenal now has fewer abilities than when he was an S-class adventurer. But on his side, now there are many years of experience that can be used to defeat anyone. The boy closed the passage to the gate and prepared for a serious test. Will his young body withstand the attack of the boss? Mila was very scared for her partner. It seemed to her that now he would not be able to withstand this blow. Charles remained calm and at the last moment activated the power of gravity shift, another of his secret techniques. There was a huge explosion and a flash of fire. It can hardly be called 3D graphics. The mad theater boss and the boy were still alive. The battle would continue until there was only one left. The crazy clown kept smiling like he was mentally retarded, and that made him even scarier. Charles looked quite calm, his gravity-shifting skill working even better than he expected. Meanwhile, Mila rested quietly. She began to guess that Charles wanted to attack from an ideal distance. The crazy theater boss attacks are too fast. If you move slowly, you will turn into a fried chicken. But if you attack this crazy clown from a distance, he can have serious problems. After a break, Mila rejoined her partner and continued to try to drain the mana from the boss. The girl saw that Charles was too far from the shelter. Could her attack hit him? Mila began to worry that something might be draining some of his mana. That would be very bad. The clown, meanwhile, turned his attention to her and began to attack, but for now, her defenses kept him at bay. It seems that this giant has run out of mana. The constant fire and fast movement have taken a lot of strength from him. Crazy Clown is very dependent on his mana level, and now he could be in serious trouble. Having understood this, Charles continued to attack again. He intuitively felt that victory was close. The boy activated the power of the comet fall and rushed forward. Everything would be resolved soon. When the mad clown saw that Charles was attacking him again, it was too late to react and dodge. Without a high level of mana, the boss's movements have become slow and predictable. Now, he may not even dream of escaping. Mila saw that they were very close to victory. Strangely enough, she did not show any extra emotions at all. All that was required of her was to activate the ball of darkness. She immediately did it and attacked the boss. It seems that this boar has been seriously injured and is no longer as cheerful as he used to be. Things did not go according to his plan. Charles activated dual gravity and to deliver the final and decisive blow. Thus, after a few seconds, the rift boss of the insane theater was completely neutralized. Charles gained more than 1,000 experience points, 6 skill points, and reached level 30. Mila was happy. They really did it. She said that the time portal will close soon and we should try to return home as soon as possible. Charles, as always, reassured her and said that there was no need to rush. The portal would be active in half a day. The girl calmed down and was no longer nervous. She still did not see what was right next to her. Only later did the girl realize that the strangely glowing object is the same weapon for which they came here. This is the boss weapon, the clown sword that Charles talked about so much. Finally, you can take it for yourself without any problems. This is the world's best item for a gravity master. Its power is completely beyond imagination. Charles said that this is the same weapon that he talked about and that he wanted so badly to get. The clown sword is a C-rank weapon that adds 11 points to attack power, speeds up skill activation, and reduces mana loss. Mila had never seen a Class C item before in her life, but it didn't look quite ordinary. Charles replied that she was completely wrong in this matter. Rank and attack power were unimportant. The importance of this sword was in his abilities. The clown sword improves all classes that rely on skills. It is the strongest sword possible. Its owner will be able to use gravity magic faster and will spend less mana on it. Charles will also be able to improve all of his weaknesses. Now, Sweetie has begun to understand why this item is so important. An adventurer who received this item in a past life was able to rise to rank A with its power. But this guy decided to become a killer. Luckily, Charles was able to prevent this and killed 2 birds with 1 stone. After listening to all this, for some reason, Mila was upset. She was especially upset by the words that this weapon could strengthen the boy's weaknesses. Is she no longer needed by Charles and will have to return to her old guild? Thru replied that he would like to continue their cooperation, but even with this sword, his mana is quickly running out. Thanks to clearing the rift of the Insane Theater, the boy's level increased and he earned additional skill points. To become the strongest adventurer, you must not forget about agility, although you can also improve gravity skills. Charles began to think about where he should spend the skill points he earned for defeating the boss. He soon decided to upgrade his gravity magic and gravity control skill. Not a bad choice. He also got a new ability, a gravity ball. Together with this and a new weapon, it will be much easier for him to use magic. He wanted to try so many things that he didn't know where to start. Suddenly, the young team of adventurers heard someone approaching them. At first, they thought it might be another monster. But it was David. He was smiling and said that he did not have time to come, but better late than never. He applauded Charles and Milo and said that they did all the dirty work for him, and he was very thankful for that. Charles immediately became very serious. He was displeased and thought that David appeared at the wrong time. It seems that he used the cloaking skill to hide his presence and calmly observe the boss fight. If Charles and Milo lost, he would use their experience to defeat the boss in the future. That must have been his plan. It's a pretty dastardly act, but it's happened a lot in Charles's past life, so it's nothing new. Charles began to look more closely at this boy. It seemed to him that they could have seen each other in a past life. A little later, he finally realized that it was the same David, the owner of the clown sword from the past life. A legendary assassin of adventurers who lost his mind after gaining this incredible power. Charles didn't understand why David was in this rift now. It used to take him much longer to get here. The boy began to think. Could they have met him during the battle with the boss of the Insane Theater? It seems that this guy was constantly watching them during this battle. He did the same thing in his past life. David killed the adventurers who were tired after fighting the boss and got this sword in his past life. David said that Charles has a very interesting weapon in his hands and he also wants to get the same sword. He asked to give him this sword so that he could look at it for a while. It looks like we are in for another serious battle. Charles replied that he refused this request and said that it was time for them to return home. David smiled in response and called the boy an idiot. He was used to always getting everything he wanted. The guy decided to kill Charles quickly and then play with his girlfriend a little. He approached the young adventurers and said that they should watch their feet more carefully. It was a classic distraction technique, after which the power of the death blow was activated. But David did not know that he was facing an unusual newcomer who watched Harry Potter. Opposite him was an S-class master in the past. Charles easily dodged David's attack and prepared to fight. He tried to attack with his magic power, but David also easily stopped his attack. Charles wanted to hit him while he was using his skills, but David is moving too fast. Compared to them, this guy with red hair is on a completely different level. Mila felt fear. David, like a real devil, felt when he was afraid he looked very relaxed and self-confident. He approached Charles and asked him how he knew that he had already killed many adventurers. Charles immediately warned the girl that this guy wanted to kill them and take the crazy clown's sword. David is an assassin and master of speed. This class specializes in surprise attacks. David said that he did not want to waste time, realizing that all the cards were open. He ordered to give him the weapons and maybe he would leave them alive. The problem with solving crimes in the dungeon is that no one can find evidence, and the murderers are almost never punished. Charles was sure that if he gave this guy a gun, he would kill him anyway. You can't negotiate with people like David. These sociopaths only want the death of everyone around them. David admitted that in front of him is a real man who is not afraid of death, but is it reasonable? The guy with red hair got angry and said that soon Charles and Mila would be begging him for a quick death. He prepared for a quick attack. It's getting really dangerous and you have to act. David was a legendary assassin who hunted adventurers in a past life. He was the one who used the clown sword. Charles should have predicted that this boy could come to this rift much earlier. This short-sightedness could cost him his life and the life of an innocent girl. His experience did not help him in this situation. Mila was not going to give up without a fight and told David not to approach them. Assassins specialize in quick and surprise attacks, primarily targeting shamans. If this guy happens to be near you, it will be too late to activate the spell and call Mom. That is why Charles ordered the girl not to approach David under any circumstances. He promised to kill this bastard on his own. Even fighting alone, Charles is still a strong opponent, although it will be almost impossible for him to defeat David. He well understood that they have a huge difference in levels, and the difference in skill is also felt. David was showing his confidence and rage. Maybe this is part of his plan to intimidate his opponent. Charles soon realized that this freak would try to attack Milo first. The girl was in mortal danger. There was no time to think. Charles sprung into action and activated gravity reduction and went on the attack. He did not act very confidently, and David felt it. One of them killed only monsters, the other killed hundreds of people. David said that he enjoys cutting other people. In his opinion, such experience gives him a huge advantage during the fight. It was clear that this guy with a headache enjoyed the battle and even managed to play with his victims. It was very difficult for Charles. He could barely contain the onslaught of the enemy and could not find weaknesses in his defense at all. But David also felt the strength of his opponent. Charles's sword no longer trembles, although the difference in their levels is colossal. David was very surprised because with each stroke of the sword, Charles adapted better to his movements. Mila watched her teacher with admiration. She was amazed at how smart and strong he was. This young girl had never met a stronger adventurer than Charles. Because they managed to get the clown sword, Charles can now switch between his combat skills more quickly. This helps a lot in the battle against David, and now you don't have to worry about your mana supply at all. No, David wasn't going to throw up. He just got angry and said enough of playing games and prepared to attack. This guy always has a few aces up his sleeve. He activated one of his signature and most dangerous techniques. A poisonous arrow flew into Charles's face with incredible speed. Will he have time to dodge? Although it was not expected, it is very dangerous, but our hero was able to dodge in time and save his life. David was amazed before no one was destined to escape from the attack of a poisonous arrow, especially from such a close distance. The guy got even angrier and said that Charles was just lucky, and sooner or later, his luck would run out. The battle of the two talents continued. David angrily went forward and tried to kill his opponent. He activated the deadly attack technique again. Last time it didn't help him. This time nothing changed either. Charles sensed that he was seizing the initiative in the duel and activated dual gravity. This was enough to injure David in the hand. This bastard was in a lot of pain. He had rarely been injured before. Charles called him too predictable. Using his assassin skills, he constantly aims for the neck. Because of this, it doesn't matter how many attacks David tries to make because his movements are too easy to read. All this time, Mila nervously watched the battle of these young adventurers. But a little later, she realized that it was time to help her partner and activated the ball of darkness. Charles immediately understood that it was time for teamwork. The girl distracted David, so you can take advantage of this. It was a precise counterattack with a sword to the left eye. Blood immediately began to pour from his face. Charles already knows all the skills of the opponent. With the help of gravity, he can keep up with all his movements. But there is one problem. The amount of mana left after the battle with the boss, it is now too little. It's only a matter of time before it ends, and if it does, David will easily kill him, so you have to hurry and finish him off. Meanwhile, David has already started to panic. He doesn't understand why he can't do anything about this guy. The further they fight, the better Charles understands his movements and the harder he is to defeat. David tried to come up with something and strike back, but Charles skillfully used his blind spot. He used shadow jump to defend himself and was able to dodge Charles's gravity attack. David could not understand why his opponent, having a huge advantage, was in such a hurry to try to finish the fight. A little later, he realized that Charles was in a hurry for a reason. After the battle with the boss, he did not have time to recover his strength. He said that Charles is really strong, and if he could survive this day, he would definitely become a hero. But this will never happen, because today he will die, because he was unlucky enough to face death. Charles didn't answer, but he understood that his supply was running out, and something had to be invented immediately. The battle of the Titans continued. It seems that they are not going to rest, and continue to show the wonders of fighting skill. Mila was also in full force in this fight, her ball of darkness giving the red-haired bastard a lot of trouble. The point of her attacks was not to kill him, but to try to distract him and allow Charles to attack calmly. Although David managed to evade Milo's attacks, it allowed Charles to rest and prepare his own attack. But the girl did not understand this at all. She was upset because she could not hurt him. All she could do was watch the boys fight each other to the death. At first everything was fine, but now the girl began to feel that her partner was beginning to lose this battle. David does not often get a chance to kill such a serious opponent. The law, kill or die yourself, works in real life. With his last strength, Charles tried to respond and make dangerous attacks, but his opponent managed to evade. He was always very close to winning, but just a little bit short of finally killing this scumbag. The battle continued, and Charles did not give up. After a few minutes, he was finally able to kick David hard in the jaw. It was effective, but the effectiveness was not enough to kill this heathen. David asked his opponent to show everything he is capable of. Normally, he annoys Charles so much, Thanks to the reduction of gravity, Charles has developed some acrobatic skills. David constantly tries to attack, although his attacks are easy to stop, but he seems to have guessed that Charles has little mana left. David was surprised that his opponent was still alive, but as soon as his mana ran out, darkness would follow. Charles is doing great defensively so far thanks to the body strengthening skill, but the question is, will it last long? Feeling that his mana was running out, the boy realized that he should win at the first good opportunity. He activated the force of gravity again and jumped high like a flea. David was amazed at this acrobatics, a rather rare talent, especially for sorcerers. Now is the time to activate double gravity and deliver a well-deserved blow using all the remaining mana. Charles activated his important ability. The fall of the comet. This is his last hope for victory. It was really effective. David couldn't understand where his opponent got such power. Charles's punch was too strong. Even his remaining mana was enough for such power. From the look on his face, he's used up all his energy reserves, and that's too bad. But Mila was happy. She rejoiced and said that everything worked out for him. And it seems that she was looking in a completely different direction, because David was still alive and well. He began to rejoice when he realized that his opponent had absolutely no mana left, so his victory was very close. Very upset, he admitted that he could not win and ordered the girl to run away immediately. He really wanted her to be able to get out of this insane rift and save her life. He knew that David would not have enough strength to catch up with her, and this should be taken advantage of immediately. Mila was in despair. She did not know what to do and was very worried. Did she really have to leave her friend? Meanwhile, David mocked her and said that she did not help her partner at all. Charles tried to distract her and told her not to listen to this scumbag. The girl was very upset. She always knew that she would be redundant in the team with Charles. If she had surrendered, as Linda told her, then Charles would not have lost and all this would not have happened. But in this difficult moment, she remembered the words of her friend, the same words, when he said that he needed her strength. This mention immediately made her feel better, as if out of nowhere the thirst to fight and win appeared in her. Meanwhile, David recognized that his opponent was very strong, even after losing all his strength in the battle against the boss. He still fought with David on equal footing. He said that he would forever remember Charles as his most principled rival and prepared to send him to hell. But it looks like it's not Charles who will go to hell today. Mila has activated the ball of darkness. The party is just getting started. David felt that he was in trouble. He underestimated this little girl. Her insolence angered him, and he said that now he will cut off her tongue and both hands. She was able to injure him with a blind spot attack, not a bad technique for an inexperienced adventurer. The girl immediately ran to help her partner. He did not understand why she became so bold. She grabbed Charles and said that they should run away immediately, but the boy replied that he had absolutely no strength left. Mila said that with the help of his words, she was able to discover her hidden strength and understand that she is capable of many things. The girl gathered all her energy and began to activate the mana recovery skill. This made David very angry, and he said that it was time for the girl to die. He activated a deadly attack and prepared to take her life once and for all. But it was already too late. She restored Charles's mana supply, and the boy managed to protect her with the help of a mad sword. He thanked the girl and said that now he is her debtor for the rest of his life. From the beginning, they fought together as a true team, and this is their main strength. Now Charles has fully recovered his mana, and David is seriously injured. Which of them will die today? The second round of the fight has begun. You can call it the rematch of the century. Charles immediately went forward. He felt that his strength was renewed, and he knew that his opponent was bleeding. David understood that he could lose to him and activated black magic, but it was too late to try to seize the initiative. He fights not only with Charles, who has renewed his mana supply, but with his assistant. The girl activated her shamanic tricks and hoped to do everything to help Charles win. The gravity magic has been activated. Charles now looks like a holy angel from heaven. David's magic takes too long to activate. In his past life, he was faster due to the mad sword effect. But without this extraordinary weapon, he is not so dangerous. Now he will not become a legendary killer of adventurers. Gravitational magic is no joke to you. Anyone who personally encounters it no longer jokes with wizards. David did not understand how it was possible. Why would he lose when his level is much higher than Charles's level? The Criminal Investigation Department is not yet that developed in cases inside the rifts. Therefore, if someone kills in the rifts, it is almost impossible to prove, but this time there is a Mila present. Charles said that he would look out for David and asked the girl to report this incident to the Division of Crimes in Rifts. After conquering the rift, the demons no longer appear so she can easily go back. A seriously injured David looked at his opponent and continued to wonder, he is only a child, so where does he have so much strength? It seems that this guy is radically different from all those that David has met before. This story in the Rift of Mad Theater has been successfully completed. It's time for a little rest. Soon the news came out that the serial killer of adventurers was finally caught. Justice prevailed. Charles was glad that this scoundrel had finally been caught. Now in the future, many adventurers would remain alive. Mila was also happy. During the investigation, she was asked many questions, but everything ended well. Fault crimes are very difficult to solve. If the criminal is unknown, the department abandons the case. And with the appearance of faults, the situation in the state has changed greatly. The level of crime in the real world has decreased. Control over external situations has also increased significantly, and due to changes in social structures, the number of poor people has increased. This is not surprising because their welfare is now on the back burner, and this problem is one of the most important for the government. It is always scary to meet a real killer inside a rift, but such situations in the life of an adventurer are not uncommon. This is our world, but that does not mean that there is no other way to survive than to become an adventurer. Charles remembered how Mila had saved him at a critical moment and thanked her for that. The girl replied that then she felt like a real ally for Charles and was very happy. She understands that there are still many challenges ahead, but when she is with him, she feels that she is capable of anything. Charles was pleasantly surprised to hear these words and replied that he hoped for her in the future. Before our eyes, a real strong friendship between a shaman and a sorcerer was born, which is rare to see. The boy and girl continued to enjoy their well-deserved rest and talked. Mila admitted that she still does not understand many things and therefore tries to do everything she is told. But someday, she wants to learn to make decisions on her own so that she can always be useful to the team. Probably Linda also didn't like these qualities of Milo, and it was precisely because of this that she constantly shouted at her. But when Mila is next to Charles, it seems that she can go through all the tests. That is why she would like to stay with him in the group forever. It seems that someone fell in love with the young sorcerer. Charles was glad to hear that. A really nice person, although sometimes he talks too much. The girl wanted to continue her conversation, but in the meantime, I wondered if she had a switch. Meanwhile, other people managed to notice them. They already knew about the rumors about the crazy theater. The story of two young adventurers taking down the Rift Boss and catching the killer in one day has already gained momentum. It seems that our heroes are now celebrities. This is a new reality for which they must be prepared. As it turned out, even Jack had already heard their story. The whole guild only talks about them. Many videos about new superheroes are circulating on the internet. People are collecting information from various sources and creating legends. Usually they write about Charles, although his real name is not known to anyone yet. Although people exaggerate their achievements, the fact remains that Charles is now a celebrity. Jack came to try again to recruit Charles to his team, but was pushed away by Linda. As soon as she heard about this news, she immediately ran to look for cute classics of the genre. She began apologizing to her former partner and said that she had said too much. He would say that he thought everything through and asks Milo to return to her team and be allies again. She understood that Mila was able to earn a lot for clearing the rift and must have raised her level significantly. Now Linda is absolutely sure that Mila will become an indispensable part of their team. Mila said that it was too loud and asked Charles to go outside with her. Jack and Linda were incredibly angry, but it was too late. Their train had left. Charles decided to ask if Mila and Linda were friends, but the girl answered that Linda did not exist for her. It seems that rumors about their work in the Rift of the Insane Theater have really spread, and other guilds know about it as well. There are many videos on the internet where newbies fight against a serial killer. Such videos always get a lot of views. These records are posted on the websites of many popular companies. They do it not for entertainment, but for additional views and profits, because where there is action, there is always money. Mila was surprised that her persona also attracted a lot of attention, but partly she even liked it. This month, various videos on the topic of rifts have received many millions of views. The girl with blonde hair, whose name was Betty, was happy and kept repeating that she was the best in the world. But suddenly she saw a video about a serial killer and a mysterious adventurer in the crack of a crazy theater. She was pissed because their fight got more views than her video. It seems adventurers' fights are always more interesting. Betty said that she should immediately make a video that will get more views. Now, she really doesn't like this guy, Charles. Betty is a young Rift researcher. From her behavior, you can understand that she is not a very pleasant person. Meanwhile, Charles and Betty went into the new cafe to talk quietly. She began to say something about her weapon. This question had worried her a lot lately. As the level increases, the rarity of the monsters that must be defeated also increases. That is why, for an adventurer, weapons have a key role, and to compensate for the weakness of shaman firepower, they need an expensive staff. That is why, in the upcoming Rift, Charles hopes to earn as much money as possible, and this issue will be resolved. Mila was upset. She said that the staff was probably too expensive for her. The guy replied that this topic was not worth her worries and said that he wanted his partner to have a wonderful weapon. Now the girl looked incredibly happy if she did not want to show it, but the love was immediately visible. She said that she is very happy because they are now equal partners and hopes that everything will be fine in the future. Charles thought that this girl is too naive. He hopes that everything will be fine in her life. Now it was time to think about which rift to go into next. Charles already had thoughts on that. He said that they should go to the rift of the Tomb of the Ancient Kings. Sounds quite interesting. This rift was found only a few days ago. It has a very high chance of getting valuable items. Such a fault cannot be found anymore. No one knows yet that the Tomb of the Ancient Kings is a rare fault. Charles knows information about this place from research notes he studied in a past life. In this rift, you can find very rare items that will cost a lot of money. They should not have many rivals because there is still very little information about this fault. Mila looked at her partner and thought that now he has a very scary face. It seems that he is up to something. The decision was quickly made. The team finished their rest and went to the Tomb of the Ancient Kings. It was quite dark in the rift, and there was a fog around in some places, not the most pleasant place. Soon, action finally began. The first monster that Charles and Milo met was a skeleton warrior. This demon is at the 29th level. It is unlikely to be a serious problem for young adventurers. Mila did not have time to recover as Charles had already activated gravity weakening and launched an attack. In his actions, experience and incredible confidence were felt. Such qualities are almost never found in young adventurers. If you didn't know that this guy was an S-class warrior in his past life, you'd think he was from another world. His attacks were merciless and incredibly fast, a true manual for close combat. Mila watched him as if enchanted. Charles, as expected, almost did not feel the power of his enemy. I have to say a few words about the skeleton warrior's jabs are completely ineffective against these guys. The guy understood this very quickly and ordered his partners to connect a magic attack. It's time for this beauty to show all her best qualities. During this time, her level has increased, so the efficiency should also increase. The skeleton warrior felt that a ball of darkness was coming towards him. The already legendary technique was cute. It was a quick destruction of the opponent, for which they received 240 experience points. Charles went to look for something else besides the magic stone and the remains of the skeleton. Milo hoped that he would be able to find something. These hopes were not in vain. A D-rank Ancient King's sword was found, which increases attack power and emits a blue glow. Charles said that they were very lucky and they would be able to sell it for a lot of money. Mila was happy. She did not expect that they would immediately be able to find something so valuable because this was only their first fight in the Rift. Charles said that a sword of this type is very difficult to find, so there must be many potential buyers. You can get about $20,000 for this weapon, which is the optimal price for a rare item. Mila had never seen such money in her life until no one found out that this fault is very rare. It should be used to the fullest. Charles said that they cannot stop and must continue to search for objects for the next 3 days. Mila was already mentally calculating the future profits if they could get many valuable items in these 3 days. This is a truly precious place and it should be used to the maximum. A team of young adventurers heard strange sounds. It seems that they are not the only ones now fighting the monsters of the Ancient King's Rift. As it turned out, fierce clashes were taking place in the other part of the rift. A huge mummy fought against Betty and her assistant. A similar Betty will soon finally meet Charles. It will be an interesting meeting, but for now, let's see how Knight George fights against the ancient mummy. There was almost no competition in this battle. It was an easy victory for the knight with the help of a sharp sword. It seems like a real movie is being filmed before our eyes. George injured the mummy and Betty only had to finish it off. The manager turned on the camera and prepared to shoot a video that would gain 1 million views. George activated us his weapon's magical enchantment, of course. What can a movie be without special effects? As soon as the manager began to shoot, Betty immediately took the fiery sword in her hands and prepared to act. She had to destroy the monster beautifully. It shouldn't be difficult because this mummy is already half dead. It seems like this is how this girl earns views. She can hardly be considered a serious adventurer. Betty started playing to the camera. She greeted the audience and said that today they went to an interesting place. Now she is in the rift of the tomb of the ancient kings and begins her research. According to her, she was able to destroy the monster with one blow, and now this place does not seem so dangerous. The girl did not see that Charles and Mila were secretly watching her. They saw all this and understood how she was filming these videos. Mila recognized Betty immediately. She had seen her videos on some fault research sites. Charles did not answer anything. He looked very serious, as if he was thinking about something important. Mila immediately remembered how she said that those who shoot such videos in the faults only plan to make money from it. She immediately understood that Charles hated Rift researchers. Now she understood his reaction to Betty. The manager continued to film the girl and saw that the legs were caught in the camera lens. At first I thought that it seemed to him, but then I realized that these are really the legs of unknown people. A little later he told Betty about it, and the girl returned and saw the spies in person. She started yelling at them and said they wasted her operator's work. Now she has to start all over again. Charles began to approach the girl and said that she should be ashamed of herself for deceiving her fans. Judging by her facial expression, she was not ashamed at all. She answered that she should show herself from the best side. She approached the manager and asked him if they could use the already filmed material. He replied that the video would need to be edited a bit, but overall, everything looks pretty great. Betty was still upset and said that if it weren't for these spies, the video would have turned out much better. Charles went over to talk to her, and the girl said her name was Betty, and she was the world's best Rift researcher. The young adventurers also gave their names, but behaved much less brazenly. Charles said that they were ashamed because they had caused her problems. The girl replied that there was nothing wrong with that. Charles wondered why she had decided to become a Rift researcher, or were there other interesting pursuits? Betty replied that the answer is always the same. She does it for the money, a timeless classic. The study of faults is a very profitable business. Such videos gain a huge number of views. If you are popular, you will be paid for advertising, so this work can make you famous. Betty said that lately she feels like a real idol for young people, but Charles did not think so. He said that the work of an adventurer is not as easy as it seems, and the girl had better stop before it is too late. Although she was displeased because of these words, it must be admitted that Charles is right. You can't relax in faults of this level. If she continues to take this matter lightly, she will surely regret it in the future. The girl was very upset. She said that Charles not only spoiled her video, but also said a lot of bad words. Mila also admitted that Charles was too harsh, and it was necessary to talk to Betty more gently. But the boy continued to be sure that he did everything right. He says this for the sake of his health. George approached his mistress and asked her not to be upset and to ignore the boy's words. Suddenly, the girl's face changed and became much more serious. She told the manager to prepare the camera for filming. She approached Charles and said that if he says such words, he must be confident in his abilities. She said that it's time to have a competition and see who can collect more magic stones. If she wins, Charles will have to apologize to her on camera and take back all of his words. She promised that she would do everything so that no one would recognize him, so Charles could not worry. If Charles wins, then Betty will always obey all his orders. Fair enough bet. The guy agreed to these terms. Although Mila was against it, it was already late. The competition starts now and will end in 3 hours. Betty said that no one has the right to run away in defeat. This girl has become very confident now. Thus, both teams of adventurers went in different directions and began to search for magic stones. Betty's assistants were pleased with her words. They thought it would be fair to show the insolent boy his true place. The girl was a good showman. She understood that with such a video, her fame would increase several times. Along with fame will come a large amount of money, and she will teach this insolent boy. But this young adventurer wasn't going to give up without a fight. He had already found the first monster and started a fight. Charles was not worried at all. He was sure that the victory would be on his side. In principle, as always. Mummy was too slow to keep up with his movements. Now they are on different levels. Charles activated Meteor Fall and destroyed the opponent. He is now level 31. For this, he received 364 experience points and 3 skill points. Not a bad start to the competition. Usually the monsters are too slow. Charles easily jumps up with gravity shift to start the attack. He then takes out the monster with double gravity. That's his battle plan in a nutshell. Another artifact was obtained, the Gauntlet of Ancient Ruins Class D. Looks like they mixed things up because it's Thanos' gauntlet. Mila still could not move away from the conflict between Charles and Betty. She believed that the boy was too cruel to the girl. He replied that he was very angry that they were using faults to shoot videos, and he was not going to lose in this competition. They should understand that it is really dangerous and it will benefit them. Charles began to worry that they were finding too many ancient objects. It would be difficult to carry them with them. Fortunately, Milo had a bag with him, and they calmly continued to study the fault. There were a lot of different interesting statues and objects. Danger was felt everywhere. So far, no one attacked the young adventurers, but the cute ones felt uncomfortable. As soon as they entered one of the rooms, the exit was immediately blocked. Charles immediately understood that it was a fault trap, but it did not scare him at all. He still remained calm. A fault trap is a special trap that sometimes occurs in faults. Such situations can be used to one's advantage. Charles said that such a chance cannot be lost and asked the girl to cook. Now everything will begin. The huge statue began to speak. This monster wanted the young adventurers to prove that they had the wisdom of kings. He said that they must answer him 3 questions. If they make even one mistake, they will lose their lives. It seems to be a special kind of riddle trap, and all the monsters are very high level, so Charles and Milo need to be careful. The girl was not as calm as her experienced friend. She began to panic a long time ago. Charles smiled and said that there was no need to worry. He was not going to lose these statues. It's time for the first puzzle. How many experience points do you need to go from level 1 to level 10? Mila was shocked. She thought that no one in the world knew this, but Charles calmly answered that 45 points were needed for this. This was the correct answer, and the boy said that he was ready for the second question. The questions continued and continued. Charles had already managed to solve 19 riddles in a row. He and Miles were already powerless before this brainstorm and asked the statue to finally stop. Mila suggested that Charles try to make a mistake on purpose. Meanwhile, it was the turn of the 20th riddle. The statue asked, "What kind of monster throws green slime?" Charles replied that there has not yet appeared a fault in which you can find green slime. It can be created only with the help of alchemy. The monster statue was shocked. 20 correct answers in a row. This cannot be. The monster thought it was some kind of joke and was being filmed by a hidden camera, but Betty is actually far away. As soon as Charles answered this question correctly, the exit door was immediately opened. If it was someone else, then 100% would answer this question incorrectly. After getting the answer right, it's time to get rewarded for your incredible brain. This is a rank beekeeper's bracelet. This bracelet has an extra space in which to store items. The size of this space depends on the magical power of the owner. It is a very useful and incredibly rare item. Mila immediately asked how expensive it was. Charles replied that if he was lucky, he could sell it for $100,000. The girl, as always, was shocked by such numbers. She probably did not have enough money in her childhood. Perhaps this award was given to Charles for the number of correct answers. Now, you don't have to worry about competing with Betty. With the Guardian bracelet, it shouldn't be a problem. Charles said that now the victory is definitely in their pocket. All that remains is to wait. Destroying normal monsters here is not difficult. Skeleton warriors have good defense against swords, but it is not enough. While Charles is distracted, Milo is able to attack the monsters with magic, so they easily win. The mummies are too slow, and Charles has no problem destroying them using gravity control. Also, they give up their mana too easily when the Mila starts attacking them. Charles had now raised his level to 33, which was to be expected from a rare rift. He also found another sword from the ancient ruins and immediately sent it to storage. This Guardian bracelet is really useful. The young adventurers have collected 6 magic stones. Charles was sure that this was enough. One must not forget that their main task today is to earn money. Meanwhile, Betty also continued her work and said that they passed all the tests successfully. They have destroyed more than one mummy, although these ancient guys are quite strong. George said that this is not enough. If the pace is not accelerated, the competition will be lost. But he also said that Charles and Milo must also be having a lot of trouble finding the stones. Betty imagined that she would lose this competition, then she would offer Charles money and ask him to forget about the situation. The problem was that she had already posted a video on the internet where she talked about these competitions. Meanwhile, Charles and Mila came to her and asked how she was doing. The girl replied that she had no problems. She told Charles that he could apologize to her and then the competition would be officially over. The boy was silent in response and opened the vault of precious objects. Betty had not felt such surprise for a long time. She did not understand where he got so many cool items and weapons. She was also interested in the bracelet on his hand. Charles smiled. He understood that the girl had problems with finding precious stones. Now it was his turn to offer the girl an apology and finish the competition early. Betty was too confident. She said that their competition was not over yet and ordered the assistants to continue their work. Mila again thought that Charles was too cruel, but the boy thought that a little joking wouldn't hurt. He hopes that she will not do stupid things and not get into mortal danger. Mila asked him if he was really trying to get revenge on this girl. He replied that she relates too easily to this dungeon and he does not like it. Dungeons are always a risk. You can't treat fault exploration the way Betty does. If she continues to take these dangers too lightly, she will soon regret it. Meanwhile, Betty was thinking about how to win, and she needed to come up with something incredible. She didn't understand how Charles and Milo were able to find such a large number of stones and artifacts so quickly. George turned to his girlfriend and said that they were low on mana and it might be time to stop. Betty got angry and said that she herself knows to watch the mana, but they can't go back and lose. She still hasn't shown what she's capable of. Her potential hasn't been fully realized. To understand the motives and views of this girl, you need to rewind time 8 years ago. Then the catastrophe just began. The ruptures of faults were constantly occurring. One of the green monsters in Betty's eyes killed her father. You wouldn't wish such a fate even on an enemy. The girl managed to escape and take her little brother with her. They were very lucky to be alive. They ran to the warehouse where people from all over the city were hiding, where they could rest and find food. People around quickly understood that these children were left without parents. It was difficult for everyone to watch. At that time, Betty started watching videos about the coolest adventurers in the country. The girl in the video said that she didn't like the feeling of being defenseless in the face of disaster, so she decided to become an adventurer. She destroyed several dangerous monsters and gave an interview to one of the journalists. It was an adventurer rank a Caroline. She was happy that she could save ordinary people from monsters. This video motivated Betty a lot. She also wants to become that strong, kind, and fair and motivate all the people around her. Since that time, Betty realized that she does not want other people to look down on her. She's obliged to win even in such competitions, so she ordered her assistants not to stop. Right now, they have too little material for a new video, so it's time to find something interesting. While the girl ran forward, the assistants could not understand what she was thinking. Betty said that while they wanted to go back, she remembered one enemy that could be quite an interesting subject for a video. She found the boss of the Tomb of the Ancient Kings, a fallen pharaoh who is at the 40th level. Betty, meanwhile, is only level 33. Looks like she's going to be in trouble soon, silly girl. It seems that this pharaoh attacked other adventurers deep in the dungeon. It is unlikely that they will be able to do anything to him. Betty said that if he found a narrow passage, he would not be able to overtake them. She saw how one girl was trying to escape from the pharaoh. If she was not helped, she would die. Betty immediately faced the same situation when her father also asked for help. She doesn't like feeling defenseless in the face of disaster. Now the girl understands why she liked Caroline so much in her childhood, because she really needed help, but Betty decided never to run away again and to face trouble. She ordered her assistants to flee immediately and stop the pharaoh's attack, thereby saving the life of another adventurer. Betty ordered this girl to run and promised to delay the enemy as much as possible. Although this young adventurer named Jennifer was saved, but now death threatens Betty. The majestic pharaoh attacked her, but George intervened at the last moment and protected his boss. The girl was surprised that he did not run away and stayed by her side at this critical moment. It really deserves respect. George said that he has no right to escape, although he is not as skilled as he would like to be in combat. Although George and the manager have prepared to the end to protect Betty, but the pharaoh is too determined. In a few seconds, George was already lying unconscious on the ground. It seems that his motivation was not enough to defeat the legendary warrior. It's the manager's turn to protect the girl. He activated the barrier skill, but will it last long? Pharaoh does not care who to destroy. He is sure that today he will have a great time with these insects. With one swing of his sword, he destroyed the manager's barrier. It was too easy. I understood that she is too weak. She lacks speed and strength, and it will be impossible to defeat this monster. Even though she was holding a sword in her hands, being left all alone, her confidence immediately dissolved. Pharaoh prepared to strike the decisive blow and put this little girl out of her misery. Of course, this cannot happen. Charles sensed the danger in time and managed to save. Although he thought this brash actress was too stupid, he still activated the power of gravity to protect her. He took her in his arms and jumped high so that the pharaoh could not get them with his swords. Betty did not understand where her savior came from. She already had time to pray and prepare for death. Charles replied that he decided to make sure that she was not in danger and only then heard the story from Jennifer. He reminded her that he was right, and she really should now regret her frivolous attitude towards rifts. He reassured the girl and said that in his hands, she is always safe. This is no longer an action movie, this is a real romantic drama. Probably these two forgot that next to them is a very dangerous Pharaoh with 4 arms. Charles managed to activate gravity in time and defended himself from the monster's new attack. Although he managed to save the girl, the main danger is still ahead and you need to focus on the opponent. It's funny to watch him fight holding Betty in his arms. It would be better if he asked her to stand aside and not interfere. He reduced the gravity with his skill and was able to deflect the halberd attack. By this time, help from the shaman had arrived and Mila had reactivated her crown weapon, the Orb of Darkness. This is unlikely to kill the Pharaoh. This guy is too experienced and dangerous to die so easily. Seeing that he easily repelled her attack, the girl became upset again. Probably she is depressed due to constant failures. Meanwhile, Charles saw that the assistants of the Betsy were badly wounded and could not run away. Their opponent is a high-ranking monster. This is the worst possible situation, so it will be extremely difficult to survive. Although the clown's sword reduces the gravity of the opponents when attacking, the fight will still be much more difficult than with the clown. Betty understood that her assistants were trying to save her life, so she could not leave them and run away. Charles asked her not to worry and assured her that he would be able to keep them safe. He was always happy to test his strength against a strong opponent. The guy called Milo and asked her to urgently top up Betty's mana balance. He promised that he would be able to buy some time for them and divert all the attention of the 40th level monster. Betty used fire magic. She is a magical swordsman who fights in close combat with a little magic support. Charles was sure that she must have the ability to heal because she is a magical swordsman. While time distracts the enemy, she will restore her health by healing. Also at this time, Mila will help her restore her mana with the help of the shaman's power. With the help of gravity reduction, Charles increased his speed, but his attack power decreased. So far, his purpose is to distract the enemy, so there are no problems yet, but the difference in their levels is too high. The main question at this point is, can the guy continue to distract using only gravity reduction? At this difficult moment, George came to the rescue, although he was badly wounded, but he was able to help Charles increase his speed. He asked the boy to save Betty, and it looks like their team is much bigger today. The fight continued. The strength of this boss is that it is big and fast. It is too difficult to find a moment to attack. Pharaoh skillfully uses his hands there with swords. Attacks come with different trajectories from different sides. Although Charles manages to defend himself so far, this guy is too fast, and if he hits with his sword, the battle will be over. Charles understood that he must even obliged to hold on until help came to him. Meanwhile, the manager was also still alive, although he felt like the morning after a loud party. He saw how selflessly Charles fights and defends himself trying to save Betty. Seeing these extremely fast and flexible movements, he realized that it must be captured on camera. The internet has never seen such a technique. It is guaranteed to get millions of views. Charles seems to have deliberately chosen the best angles for shooting. It will be a real bestseller. The manager had time to film everything beautifully. It seems he had time to attend Quentin Tarantino's courses before traveling to the vault. So far, Charles manages to compensate for the difference in levels by reducing gravity. But he has one problem: he cannot deal any damage to his opponent. And Charles alone will not be able to defeat him, but the transfer of mana for Betty is almost complete. The girl thanked sweetly when everything was done. Now it's her time to join this game. She activated the healing skill. It shouldn't take too long. After a few minutes, Betty was fully ready for battle. Now the real hell will begin, and the Pharaoh will regret that he was born. Of course, this battle will not pass without love. The girl also said that she will fight to the end together with her team. Charles was pleased, but the situation was still not in their favor, so there was no need to delay any longer. The boy said that they should defeat this giant in one attack, but judging by his biceps, it would be very difficult. Betty has already managed to join Charles. All together, they form a real force that will be enough to win. But not everything started working out right away. At first, Charles had problems. Mila immediately saw that her friend was pressed against the wall. The situation was quite tense. Charles started to activate gravity reduction and weight reduction. This should help even in a critical situation. With the help of these skills, he began to throw various statues at the Pharaoh, an unusual technique of fighting. Pharaoh easily repelled this attack and cut the statue into several pieces with his sword. Sensing that this was their chance to deliver a decisive blow, Charles called for Milo and ordered her to shoot the monster in the head. Mila is always ready to take on such responsibility. she is no longer an intimidated girl as before. Activating the ball of darkness, she attacked the Pharaoh. Everyone stopped in anticipation. As it turned out later, the Pharaoh did not feel any problems with this attack. The ball of darkness did not help. Although Mila was upset, but it seems that this is exactly what Charles wanted. It was a check on his opponent. He understood that near the monster's head there is strong armor, which means that something important is hiding behind it. Meanwhile, Betty found her opponent's blind spot and began her attack. But because of his 4 arms, the Pharaoh is almost impossible to approach. This guy's really powerful. Betty was surprised to see that Charles was able to approach this demon and attack it. The guy looked at Betty and said that now he will try to weaken the Pharaoh's defenses, and at that moment she must destroy his mask. Magic swordsmen have the skill of piercing armor, and it does not take much time to prepare for this. This will immediately significantly reduce the opponent's defense, and it will be much easier to defeat him. Betty was ready for this, but she did not understand what Charles would do to weaken the Pharaoh. The power of the fallen Pharaoh is formed in his 4 arms, but if you stop them, he will be much slower. Thanks to this, the adventurers will have more chances to attack, which is exactly the plan Charles chose. He activated the gravity skill and began to attack, but this was exactly what the Pharaoh had been waiting for. Charles immediately used gravity chains. This magic binds the monster's movements and will be able to tie the Pharaoh's hands. This should be enough to slow it down, so Charles used the chains closer to the monster's shoulders. This tactic can be used against large and multi-armed opponents. Due to the fact that the chains are near the shoulders, it will be difficult to break them. Betty watched the guy's technique with pleasure. She realized that it was her time to attack. It seems that this is the moment she has been waiting for a long time. This attack could change her life. That scared little girl no longer exists. Now she is a real professional adventurer. Betty charged and activated armor piercing as Charles and Milo watched with bated breath. The Pharaoh did not have time to quickly repulse the girl's attack due to the shackles of his 4 hands. The girl hit the target exactly, and the fallen Pharaoh immediately grabbed his face. A little later, it became clear that the plan was completed. The armor on his face was destroyed, and this guy showed his true face. The Pharaoh can hardly be called handsome. His face is his weak point. Charles ordered his team to attack immediately while the fallen Pharaoh's movements were slowed. The boy activated the gravity shift and was the first to step forward as a true leader. The Pharaoh began to defend, but Charles had seen these moves before, a powerful attack with all hands. It's pretty predictable, but when his hands are tied, this technique isn't too dangerous. Charles also noticed that during such an attack, the Pharaoh tilts his head too much. With the help of these observations, you can finally kill this handsome man and send him to hell. At such moments, Charles always activates the comet fall. It seems to be his signature weapon for destroying enemies. The guy looked very confident. It felt that he was sure that this would be enough to destroy the monster. As it turned out, the fall of the comet caused incredible damage to this giant. So now the boss of the tombs of the ancient kings is officially destroyed. His Majesty, the fallen Pharaoh, is dead. While Charles was getting extra experience and skill points and leveling up, Betty ran to help her friends. After the death of the fallen Pharaoh, it remained to wait for a just reward. This reward was the staff of the king of the cursed rank C. It adds magical power and strengthens dark magic. Rare rift bosses often drop important items, and this staff is perfect for Mill. Charles thought they would have to keep looking for items to sell for a long time, but they were lucky and got the staff right away. Mila wasn't sure she deserved such a reward, but Charles reminded her that she had helped him in many battles. It was only with her power that he was able to obtain the sword of the Mad Theater, so he will honestly give her this staff. Betty also participated in the battle with Pharaoh. She thanked the boy for his help and rescue. She said she was happy to be alive and Charles could keep the drought and the magic stones. Although she didn't look happy, probably because it was time to talk about their arrangement and competition. The guy calmly replied that they can assume that Betty won. The girl was incredibly surprised when Charles agreed to take back his words. He admitted that she was serious about the faults. Betty replied that she was glad to hear that, and Mila and Charles just smiled in response. Charles said that to achieve more as an adventurer, you need to train more and shoot less videos. The manager intervened in the conversation. He said that working as an adventurer does not always bring a lot of money. Of course, if you are a high-level adventurer, there will be no problems with this. But Betty's mother has no legs because of the disaster, and she also has 5 little brothers. Her father died a long time ago, so it is very difficult to feed the family. The girl was unhappy that the manager started telling her this. She believed that there was no need to tell stories about her family to everyone around. Charles was surprised. He thought all this time that the girl loved money because of her selfishness. Betty got angry and replied that she always took the work of an adventurer seriously. Everyone is afraid of disasters, and the girl wants to give people smiles in this troubled time. Charles agreed that it was a really good goal and told Betty well done. Although the girl was surprised but immediately made a serious expression on her face, the little actress always sits inside her. Thus ended the adventures in this rare Rift of Ancient Kings. George reported that the equipment is in perfect order and will make a great video demonstrating the skills of an experienced adventurer. Betty was happy. This kind of content is bound to get millions of views. But George quickly upset her. They don't have enough magic stones and frames for a decent video. The situation is not easy. George offered to take the stones from Charles, but the girl replied that she did not want to accept gifts out of pity. They should have at least something. Any material that can be posted on the internet is suitable. The manager showed Betty a video where Charles fights on an equal footing against a huge fallen pharaoh. Let's move to the Adventurers Guild. These events happened a few days after the last adventure. Mila and Charles continued their training and education to become the ultimate adventurers. The girl started screaming and said that Charles must watch this video. The guy calmly replied that she should not look for information about faults on the internet, but only ask an experienced adventurer. It seems that Charles was referring to himself. He remembers information about most of the future faults, but it was something different. A new video about the appearance of a mysterious adventurer was released on Betty's YouTube channel. It very quickly gained more than 1 million views. In the comments, everyone was amazed at the speed and strength of this guy. As soon as Mila showed it to Charles, he immediately smiled proudly. Now he understood why everyone around him was looking at him so strangely. Mila was happy. Over 1 million views in 24 hours, which is what you'd expect from Charles. At home, Betty has also managed to see how many views her video has received. The girl was very happy and said that she was the best, although she was not showing her technique in the video. Her phone started ringing. It was Charles. They had exchanged contacts after the adventure in the rift. Betty greeted and said that it was no wonder that Charles already missed her. She smiled and said that she understood why he became her supporter. By agreement, she could post the video on her channel, but if he didn't like it, she could remove it later. Charles understood that Betty was trying to feed her family during this troubled time, so he replied that there was no need to delete the video. Betty was happy and said that she had an interesting idea. Charles is a superstar now, so it would be good to make a video together. Charles immediately hung up. Mila wanted to know what happened, but he answered that there was a problem with the connection. Now, the guy is not thinking at all about popularity and shooting videos. Now, he is interested in something else. He thinks about a very rare item that he was unable to obtain in his past life, the Ring of Wisdom. At the current rate of development, he will be able to count on him this time, and the whole future history will change dramatically. Soon the boy applied for promotion to C rank. He is now at level 36, and this is enough for a promotion. Mila is already level 32, and soon she will be able to increase her rank as well. Jessica was incredibly surprised again. This young team is raising their level faster than anyone in the guild. To increase the rank, you have to constantly defeat monsters of a higher level. This is a very difficult task. Without the necessary knowledge, it will be very difficult to achieve this, so only the best of the best reach the maximum level. Adventurers who have reached rank C are already considered first class. Mila promised to do everything possible to keep up with her friend. Charles didn't look incredibly pleased. He said that he wanted to raise his level to rank B within a month. Mila was very surprised. It would be almost impossible to do this in a month. Only a few people were able to reach it so early in the morning. Charles replied that he must do it in order to get the desired item, which he is constantly thinking about. This item is located in a location that cannot be accessed without rank B. It is a high-rank rift library of secrets. If you defeat the boss of this high-ranking rift, you can get a Ring of Wisdom. Mila couldn't understand how Charles knew all this if this boss hadn't been defeated yet. And it was also very interesting, what effects and advantages does this ring give its owner? Charles replied that the Ring of Wisdom could be related to the phenomenon of the occurrence of faults. This shocked the girl. The Ring of Wisdom is a rare item with incredible potential, but in a past life, its location was unknown. According to rumors, the secret of the rifts is hidden in the ring. Charles has little time, but he must get this ring. The guy said that he could not risk the life of Milo if she refused to go with him, then he would understand. The girl replied that she wanted to help and would be happy to go to this high-ranking fault together with Charles. But for this, you need to immediately raise the rank. It will not be easy, and for this, you need to come up with a plan. Charles said that he took care of everything ahead of time and made a list of faults to clear. This will help raise the level. So the young adventurers immediately went to work. The first opponent was a blood feast. This monster is the boss of the Red Troll Rift. He is at level 32, but that didn't help him from the gravity attack. After that, Siren, the boss of the Mermaid Lake Rift, was attacked, but Mila quickly destroyed this level 30th monster. After that, with the help of a falling comet, Charles destroyed Arachne, the boss of the rifts of the 36th level catacomb. In the next 2 weeks, 3 rifts were passed. Mila had already reached level 35. Charles was now at level 38. Although these were low-level faults, it took a lot of work to clear them, especially in the last fault. But the movements of bosses at this level are too predictable. You cannot expect anything unusual. Charles has well-selected faults that are easy to find. All faults of the required level in the city have been found. If the young adventurers can clear 5 more rifts above level 30, they will be able to rise to rank B. Charles and Milo came back to the guild and told Jessica that they planned to raise their rank again. The girl replied that in order to pass this time, a difficult exam is being held and you have to wait a few days. At that moment, professional adventurer Edward approached them. He couldn't believe that these kids wanted to get B rank. Experienced adventurers can sign contracts with guilds. Edward already had such a contract. Their work consists in managing faults and solving unforeseen situations. Also, they should help capture heavy faults. For this, they have great influence in guilds. Edward thought it was some kind of joke. These children cannot claim such a high rank. But Jessica answered him that Charles and Mila had already reached level 40. He definitely did not expect that. Edward looked at these children and was surprised. How could the two of them defeat a large number of bosses? Edward has been working as an adventurer for over 7 years, and for a long time he was the only rank B adventurer in this guild. He could not believe that some little scoundrels were trying to take his glory away from him. Charles was upset that they had once again attracted the attention of an unpleasant personality. Edward said that he could not accept this. Children who have not worked for at least a year are not worthy of rank B. Edward is one of the few rank B adventurers in this guild. He has a lot of influence. Perhaps the guild will not be able to ignore the opinion of such an experienced adventurer. Applications for advanced training are analyzed by the heads of the guild, and the opinion of the adventurers on the contract is also taken into account. If it was only Charles, he would be silent, but with him, Milo and they will not back down. The boy confidently looked at Edward and said that he wanted to know the reason for the rejection of the application. Edward aggressively approached the boy and said that they were too inexperienced to carry such a high rank. Rank B is a great responsibility. Edward believes that it cannot be obtained so easily by anyone who wants it. Mila felt all this negative energy and immediately became very upset. She also wanted to increase her rank. Many people had already gathered around. Some adventurers admitted that these children were not lucky enough to catch Edward's eyes. Edward said that to become adventurers, one must be older than 17 years of age. Charles replied that he knew all this information well and also knew a lot about adventurers and rifts. It had already been 15 years since the rifts appeared, and in this country, only 6 people would have been able to reach the rank in less than a year. Charles said that these people were promoted through no fault of their own. Edward visibly began to worry. Charles said that he was strong enough to get the rank, and if Edward rejected his application for some unknown reason, then he was willing to listen to it. Charles understood that some laws related to rifts and adventurers were still not finalized. Edward looked tense and said that young people should listen to the opinion of more experienced adventurers. But Charles replied that one should not make decisions based on one's own feelings. One should look at real achievements. Any decision should be made based on clear rules because this is the policy of any guild of adventurers. Jessica heard this and became visibly nervous. She completely agreed with the young man's words. Mila continued to admire her friend. She was surprised that Charles was so easily against an experienced adventurer. Even in such a situation, Charles shows his superiority. Everyone around felt how stubborn this guy is. Edward was the most angry of all. He believed that this bastard was publicly mocking him. Such an experienced adventurer could not forgive. He immediately approached Jessica and asked what level and class these children had. The girl answered that Charles was a gravity master of the 38th level. The adventurer was very surprised. He had never heard of such a rare class before. But surely a gravity master is something quite interesting. No wonder Charles has a high level, knowing about his connections. Edward admitted that he jumped to conclusions and he needed to take into account all the abilities of the boy. He is ready to reconsider his decisions, but only under one important condition. Edward confidently said that this condition is a personal test. Is Charles worth rank B? Edward told the boy that as soon as he was ready, he could come to the training hall. If Charles can defeat him in a practice fight, then Edward will agree to Charles and Milo's promotion. But if Charles can't win, then he might not even dream of rank B. Everyone around was quite interested, but no one believed that a young guy could defeat an experienced adventurer. Edward had recently killed 2 young apprentices during a training battle, so Charles was going to have a hard time. Edward smiled smugly. He felt that he was going to make this arrogant boy suffer. The main problem is that Charles is currently at level 38, and Edward is at level 47. Edward considered his opponent to be an ordinary peasant who had been helped to level up. Edward is an experienced druid warrior. His class enhances physical abilities with the power of beasts. He is sure that his characteristics are better in all parameters, and he will be able to trample this young scoundrel. Edward believed that Charles would never appear in the guild again after this defeat, but the boy looked quite calm. He understood that Edward had a class with high indicators of physical abilities, and there could be problems with this. The boy realized that it was time to spend his experience and skill points and improve his characteristics. With improved gravity control skills, he will be able to increase his strengths even more. Edward sneered at his opponent. He said that nothing would help Charles avoid a shameful defeat. Accidents during practice combat are commonplace, so anything can happen. Charles confidently took out his sword and said that he had nothing to worry about because a shameful defeat awaits his opponent. Mila was very excited. She understood that she would not be able to help her friend during the battle, and this upset her. Edward wanted this to be a lesson for all young adventurers. He wanted to show that experience should be respected. Taking out his huge sword, he said that it was time to start a training battle. Edward said that he would not use his skills, but Charles could show his maximum. Other adventurers had already gathered around. They all wanted to see how they would kill the young fool. Charles calmly replied that he was ready and began the battle with the force of gravity reduction. Edward understood that his opponent had a low level and a weak class. Everyone knows that wizards are not capable of anything. He was absolutely sure that no gravity attack could harm him. Edward sensed that it was time to have fun, and the battle began immediately. Charles very confidently went forward. It was at this moment that the experienced adventurer realized that in front of him was a very unusual young man. He didn't understand how Charles got such a high speed. Judging by his low level, he shouldn't be that fast. Edward still didn't understand what was happening. It seems he underestimated his opponent too much. The experienced adventurer realized that he needed to concentrate and show this boy what a real B rank is. He tried to cut off his head with his huge sword, but realized that Charles's speed reached a completely different level. The boy easily dodged Edward's attack and was already behind him. When Edward realized that he couldn't resist this speed, it was too late. Charles moved closer and delivered a powerful knee strike to the jaw. Although now the most interesting part begins. Now Edward no longer looks down on this young adventurer. Moments of their fight began to be filmed on camera. No one could believe that an ordinary novice could be capable of such a thing. So far, Charles is winning the training battle against Edward, which is hard for the other adventurer in the guild to accept. Some of the other students said that there was nothing surprising about it. It was just a skill test, and Edward wasn't using his strengths. The experienced adventurer still could not hit the young guy. He began to think about possible defeat. If he doesn't win, then everyone around him will make fun of him. He can't suffer such disgrace in his guild. Edward understands that the level of his opponent is much lower than his, but why is Charles so strong? Edward probably doesn't know that Gravity Master is the strongest class you can get. With the help of the gravity control skill, you can compensate for the lack of physical strength. In short duels, Charles' mana should be enough to maximize the use of gravity skills. Let Edward have a higher level, but without using skills, it will be very difficult for him to win. Charles mentioned that David was much stronger in close combat and had very strong abilities. In addition, he did not have such a strong hatred for Charles, but these two enemies are similar in some ways. The boy understood that the time has come to act. Not to think. Time is running out, and this match must be finished. So he activated double gravity and went on the attack. Edward immediately felt the strength of his opponent. He was surprised to realize that Charles's sword had unexpectedly become heavier. It seems that he is strong not only in speed. At the moment when Edward tried to strike back, he realized that his opponent had disappeared. Edward believed that this does not happen, and that this is some unknown magic. He did not yet see that Charles was behind him. After a few seconds, Charles came up behind and threatened his opponent with his sword. That's how confident he was. While Edward was attacking, Charles reduced the gravity and used this moment to be behind him. During the jump, he was in his opponent's blind spot, so Edward decided that Charles had disappeared. Everyone around was surprised and happy at the same time. It's not every day you can see how a young novice defeats a rank B adventurer. Mila looked the happiest of all. The girl was very happy to see that Charles had won. Edward thought that it was all a joke. He did not understand how he could lose to a novice and did not recognize Charles's achievements. The guy was sure that now there should not be any additional problems with improving his qualifications. But after a few seconds he realized that it was too early to rejoice because he felt Edward's thirst for blood. The experienced adventurer was not going to lose this battle. He activated the predator's claw break and selflessly ran to attack. All his words about the rules and not using skills during the battle are now irrelevant. The battle has begun not for life, but for death. Charles managed to defend himself, but felt the true power of his opponent on his own body. The boy lost his concentration after winning the training battle. This is unacceptable for a B-rank adventurer. Edward slyly used the weapon as bait and attacked with real skill at this moment. The young adventurers of the guild who were watching this fight were dissatisfied with Edward's actions and said that this was the act of a real coward. He promised that he would not use skills during the fight. Only losers act like that. But strangely enough, this did not scare Charles at all. The boy still looked quite confident and said that he was ready to continue the battle. Edward was incredibly angry. He thought that Charles was barely on his feet and still continued to mock him. Edward wasn't going to accept this. He had underestimated his opponent due to his weak level. But now things would be different. If the rumors about his loss get around the guild, he will be in total disgrace. Therefore, Edward said that there's no point in continuing the fight, and he officially rejects the request for promotion. According to him, the last blow was not delivered during their fight. With this approach, Charles will not be able to defeat the strong demons. He said that he deliberately left many holes in his defense, but Charles could not take advantage of it. Besides, Edward didn't use skills at all, and Charles still got hurt. The people around were very unhappy with Edward's actions. They called him a stupid coward and said that he was not going to recognize Charles from the very beginning. These words really enraged Edward. He could clearly hear how they mocked him and lost all his self-confidence. Seeing Edward's anger, some of the students of the guild immediately fell silent. Few want to anger such a strong adventurer. But unexpectedly, it turned out that there are people who are ready to defend the rights of Charles. It was Jack. He said that Edward is acting unfairly. According to him, Charles fought absolutely honestly and was able to win. Edward broke his promise and used his abilities during the battle. Jack said that the adventurers on the contract had lost their honor. This made Edward very angry. Instead, Charles was pleasantly surprised. He did not expect that help in a difficult situation would come from this side. Jack looked at him and smiled. He said that Charles is his best friend, and he will definitely help him. Charles appreciated the help, but the phrase about best friend was rather strange. Mila sadly watched these debates. She well understood that despite the victory of Charles, the situation was still bad. As long as Edward doesn't recognize the boy's skills, all of this loses its meaning and they won't be able to improve their skills. The difference in strength was obvious. It seems that this is what Charles angered his opponent. It was necessary to beat him even harder. Although maybe the guy just had to pretend to be a weak adventurer and lose this battle. Their conversation ended unexpectedly. Everyone around them heard strange sounds and got distracted from the conflict. Suddenly, the vice president of the guild, Michael, appeared. He said that he had been looking for Edward for a long time and asked what was happening here. Edward calmly explained that it was just a small check on which he wasted his time. Michael knew that accidents during training fights are not uncommon, so he asked Charles to leave immediately and contact the doctors. Edward said it's just a scratch that will heal quickly and it's nothing serious. Michael said that he and Edward needed to talk urgently, so the inspection was officially completed. Jack was the most angry of all. He couldn't believe that one of the best adventurers in the guild would turn out to be a coward. Mila was also upset. She approached Charles and asked what they should do next. Meanwhile, the vice president of the guild asked Edward why he arranged this fight. Edward explained that the boy wanted to apply for promotion to rank B, and he decided to show him his true place. Maybe the vice president underestimates adventurers too much, but Edward really hates them. When they entered the vice president's office, it was time to talk about the B-rank fault called the Beast Mausoleum. Controlling such a high-ranking rift is not very easy. Adventurers level up faster and find a lot of materials. The guild received a message about an unexpected change in the location of monsters in this rift. Also, the concentration of magical energy has reached its maximum, so now it is necessary to prepare for a disaster. The guild wants to completely remove all possible risks, that is, capture this rift before disaster occurs. Also, the agency wants to keep several B-rank rifts. The guild head is also not against keeping this rift. That's why Michael told Edward to close this rift in the Beast Mausoleum. There's a lot they don't know about faults right now, so it's probably not wise to jump to conclusions. Michael asked Edward to speak to the guild director and ask him to change his mind. But Edward was against it. He asked Michael to shut up and said that he always received unpleasant assignments from him. He started throwing various papers from the office and said that these are not his problems. He told Michael to look less at all these numbers because it would not help to learn more about the real faults. Edward has much more experience and there is no problem in this if necessary. He will easily close this problematic gap. Michael was very unhappy. He thought that it might be too late because they don't know where exactly the disaster will come from. He believed that they are obliged to protect this city and country and cannot allow a catastrophe to destroy them. He hoped that the worst possible scenario would not happen and nothing bad would happen. Meanwhile, Charles had already managed to go to the doctors and rested after the training fight together with Milo. The girl looked more upset than he did. She did not expect that such a high-class adventurer would turn out to be such a bad person. You can get a new rank only in the guild of your area. Probably Edward will not allow Charles to improve his qualifications. But in order to get into the mystical library, this must be done. Mila can take the exam in another guild, but her level is too low for that yet. Charles was trying to come up with a new plan, and suddenly Betty came up to him. This is such an unexpected meeting. She already heard that during the exam he had problems with the adventurer on the contract. One of her fans sent her a video of the fight. The whole world will know about the injustice on the part of the adventurer B rank. 1,000 shameful comments have already been written to Edward. Betty said that all her fans are incredibly angry and want justice. She remembered that Charles had saved her and understood that she should return the debt to him. The girl said that she wants to do everything in her power to help him achieve justice in this matter. Well, of course, the girl admitted that she would also be able to earn quite well from this business. Thomas explained that they still do not know much about the rifts, so it is quite logical that the guilds rely on experienced adventurers. In addition, it must be admitted that Edward is hardly from that cohort of people who change their opinion about others. He absolutely hates everyone else except him, so it is almost impossible to talk to him and negotiate. While Betty was agreeing with Charles, Mila was calmly and quietly eavesdropping on this conversation. Betty said that she is very worried about Charles and they don't want him to have any serious problems. At that moment, Sweetie realized that she could no longer remain silent. She asked Betty if she liked Charles. Betty immediately blushed and started laughing nervously. She said it was some kind of joke and she didn't like Charles. According to her, he is too self-confident and arrogant. Such guys are not to her taste at all. She explained that she wanted to help him because he saved her life. It would be fair on her part. Also, she considers herself an idol, so they can't meet. At least her fans won't understand. Everything Betty was saying seemed strange enough, but the conversation about her preferences ended abruptly. Mila's phone started ringing loudly. A message came that a new B-rank fault had appeared in the city and everyone urgently needed to go to a safe place. This rift is very close to the guild. It is called the Beast Mausoleum. Is there really going to be an invasion? Invasion is a disaster. When demons come out of the rift into our world, to stop this disaster, you need to destroy the rift and defeat its boss. It was quite strange because in the past life of Charles, this did not happen. I wonder if this is a coincidence or the result of his changes in this world. If this is indeed the result of the changes, then this plot becomes much more interesting. The rift is getting more and more out of control by the minute, even though it has passed all checks and the guild must control it. Betty has not been in a rift of this rank before. She is too low level to do so. Although the girl understood that in this city there are people who do not have any level at all, so she decided to go to this rift. Charles replied that they would all go together. The fault line would get out of control. It is not known what could happen if the catastrophe is not stopped. In the event of a disaster, the monsters are much stronger than they should be. One must hope that everything will be limited to an invasion. Meanwhile, other high-level adventurers also set out to stop the potential disaster. On their way was a 34th level werewolf, quite a powerful opponent for any adventurer. But Edward was much stronger than this monster and ordered him to flee or accept his death with dignity. After a few seconds, the werewolf was dead. It seems that beating monsters is much better for Edward than beating children. Edward was very angry. He did not expect that Michael's prediction would really happen. It seems that he was ashamed again. Now it seems to him that everyone around is trying to make a fool of him. Young adventurers from the guild went with him. They were amazed at how he was able to destroy a werewolf with one blow. He started yelling at the students and said that he was the strongest they had worked with and the werewolf was only a C rank. Edward understood that if there was too much destruction around, then his position could be in danger. "We must immediately stop this and destroy the boss of the rift. It is a phantom fox of the 47th level. Edward is certain that he will be able to defeat the boss. If he succeeds, he will become a hero, and he will be able to shift the blame to Michael." He got ready and went in search of the boss. There was already a lot of destruction around. Dozens of people had already died. Pretty quickly, they ran into the boss of the Beast Mausoleum Rift, a phantom fox. "This is not some fox from the forest. This guy will take your head off in seconds without even thinking about it." The young students were very scared. They said that this is not the monster they were told about in the guild. It is something much stronger. They were absolutely right. The rift boss is level 55. He looked much more convincing than the pictures in the books. It seems that this is evolution. Due to it, the level of the creature increases significantly. Also, during evolution, the monster changes its form. The Phantom Fox became a real demon spirit. He gained new skills and evolved into a completely different life form. When magical power accumulates in the portal, unusual events begin to occur. This often happens together with other disasters. The young students were frightened. They suggested Edward to run away urgently and find a safe place. These fools did not understand that if they ran away, it would only get worse. In this case, Edward's role as the defender of the portal would be in jeopardy. He turned around and started yelling at these young fools and explained that he had been in similar situations many times. He is a professional B-rank adventurer, so retreating is impossible. He will be able to destroy this monster in one hit. Young adventurers John and Flynn said that such a monster cannot be stopped. Fighting with it is total madness. According to them, Edward will die immediately as soon as he attacks the monster. He thought that he took these 2 pieces of crap with him for nothing. Edward told the boys that they doubted his words for nothing. Now he would help them gain some self-confidence. Edward used his magical power and caused the boys a lot of pain. Berserker is a magical skill of a beast warrior. It temporarily increases the attack power of a person under the influence of this skill. Early in his career, Edward used this as a decoy. It had been a long time since he last used this skill. He ordered the brothers to put aside all their worries and confidently go to battle and fight to the death. Under the influence of this technique, John and Flynn took out their red swords and began to attack the rift boss. It seems that this guy always acts like a real coward. He uses the brothers as bait and then wants to deliver the decisive blow. Edward always believed that an ordinary adventurer could not survive if he did not resort to trickery. He didn't care that these young talents now risked dying in the battle against a true demon. The Phantom Fox, after its evolution, is a beast of a completely different caliber. This demon spirit is incredibly dangerous. Looks like he's going to use demonic destruction now. Don't know what it is, but sounds very convincing. It seemed that the monster was mocking these young adventurers. It was obvious that he did not consider them equal rivals. The demonic destruction began to work, and huge stones began to rain down on the adventurers. It looks like a telekinesis skill. The scope of its abilities is too wide. Edward immediately recognized that this was the first time he was facing such a powerful opponent with level 55 magical abilities. If he does not do something urgently, he will be left without arms and legs. Well, at least he will not be able to beat children anymore. Only now, feeling the strength of his opponent, he realized that he should have run away while his brothers distracted the monster. But now it may be too late. The Phantom Fox is very angry and wants to taste human blood. The demon was too fast and strong and managed to injure Edward. This is very close to the end. Edward could not understand why this monster appeared here. In close combat, Edward is very powerful, but now he lost in a few seconds. Fortunately, Edward has a skill that only beast warriors can do. It is called a dead man, disguising himself as a dead body for a few seconds. The Phantom Fox approached its victim and saw that his heart was not beating. The monster immediately turned around and walked away. Now Edward has the opportunity to escape. Now he is not worried about others at all, basically as usual. It seems that while this scoundrel was thinking about how to save his life, the monster sensed him. Now no tricks of a professional adventurer are working. It's too late to call Mom. The demon seriously injured the adventurer, and now Edward cannot move at all. Edward begged to be saved. He could not believe that he would die such a horrible death in such a place. But death is far from over because the Phantom Fox has started using telekinesis again. It seems he likes torture. Now Edward will feel what real pain and darkness are now. Not even his young brothers will help him. The Phantom Fox grabbed its victim and began to inflict inhuman suffering on it, but it was even painful to watch. In India, They could not punish this scoundrel, so the monster from the rift had to do it. Meanwhile, the disaster continued to destroy the city streets and kill innocent people. But fortunately, there were young adventurers who were ready to risk their own lives for the sake of saving others. These young adventurers channeled their abilities to destroy monsters and help ordinary people. During these few hours of the disaster, Charles had already managed to gain more than 500 experience points. Betty said that they wouldn't be able to save everyone and get everyone to safety. That is why they must do everything to clear the labyrinth, otherwise the number of victims will only increase. More than half an hour has passed since the danger was reported, but the threat is still not eliminated. Charles understood that the boss of the Mausoleum of Beasts should already be destroyed by one of the groups of adventurers. But too much time has passed, but there is no result. So you have to prepare for the worst scenario. As it turned out, Edward was still alive, but judging by his behavior, he had completely lost his mind. He began to attack a group of exorcists. They tried to stop him and say that they were fighting on the same side, but he did not hear them. The Phantom Fox has completely taken control of him in its paws. It is unlikely that Edward can be helped in any way. If such strong adventurers begin to go over to the side of the enemy, then the disaster can become even more massive. It was decided to destroy Edward. It is better than watching him fight on the side of the enemy. But he's still a rank B professional adventurer. It's not easy to defeat such a guy in close combat. He began to attack his opponents and inflict very serious injuries on them. With the help of the Beast King strike, he destroyed the exorcists with incredible ease and speed. This was very unexpected. They all came here to find and kill the monster, not to fight against other adventurers. It was impossible to convince Edward to stop. His mind was completely controlled by the enemy. A battle to the death with a rank B adventurer is like a battle with a high-level monster. The problem is not even the anomaly itself, because it is only a side effect of the disaster. But the problem is that no one has ever encountered such a disaster. It is something completely new and dangerous. This is not at all a task that ordinary adventurers or squads of exorcists can cope with. Fortunately for the exorcists, the young adventurer Charles came to their aid in time. He activated the reduction of gravity, so Edward began to attack. He very quickly realized that Edward was under the mental control of the monster boss. Edward is not an opponent that ordinary adventurers can defeat. He is quite a powerful beast. But Charles perfectly understood that an adventurer of the B rank should be able to fight with opponents of equal strength. Although Edward fights completely differently, his movements are slower than during the rank promotion exam. Perhaps all these slowdowns are a side effect of the monster's psychic influence. Edward began to aggressively attack the boy and activated his Beast King strike skill again. Charles skillfully managed to dodge. He noticed that his opponent lost patience and began to hastily attack without preparation. Now it's Charles's turn to strike back with double gravity. He was able to severely injure his opponent and hoped that after that Edward would get rid of the monster's influence. The experienced adventurer was still as if divided into two worlds. He was still partially under the monster's control. Charles told him that if he wanted to fight, they could continue with the exam for promotion. Edward replied that he would not allow anyone to look down on him and would destroy Charles. He immediately went on the attack and activated his berserker power. It looks like he will be hard to help. Charles felt that the effect of the monster on Edward's brain had increased significantly. But even if this opponent is much stronger than him, he cannot delay this fight any longer. Charles immediately apologized to Edward for his future actions and jumped up high. It seems that I already know what will happen now. It's time for the Comet Fall technique. With the help of the double gravity strike, this technique has become even more dangerous. Charles made excellent use of his strengths and was able to cut off Edward's right arm. He also managed to cut his opponent's tendons. Now he will not pose any threat. Exorcist Morpheus was amazed watching the actions of this young adventurer. Charles fought against a B-rank adventurer, but restrained his power so as not to kill his opponent. This is an indicator of a very powerful warrior. Meanwhile, a group of female supporters ran up to Charles. They were scared and started yelling at the guy for running away. Charles quickly apologized to the girls and said that there was an urgent situation that needed to be resolved. Now they have to take all the wounded to a safe place. The situation is still very unstable and dangerous. But it looks like they won't succeed, because a much more serious problem has appeared on the horizon. The girls were very frightened when they saw that a phantom fox appeared in front of them. They had never seen such a dangerous monster. Although the young adventurers have already managed to defeat many monster bosses, they still have not met such a strong opponent. Although Charles tried to show his confidence with all his looks, it was clear that he was also excited about the upcoming battle. It seems that the boss of the Rift of the Mausoleum Beasts went on a hunt. The main thing is that he himself does not become someone's dinner. Mila was very scared. She probably didn't read the book in the guild because she didn't understand what kind of beast it was. Charles quickly explained to the girl that in front of them was the boss of the Breach of the Animal Mausoleum. Phantom Fox, or as it is also called demonic Vaija Fox. This monster is at the 55th level. Charles analyzed his opponent and realized that the information received was different from what was written in the books. It seems that the evolution of the monster took place almost instantly from the appearance of the rift, which greatly complicates the situation. When a monster evolves, it is very difficult to predict what skills it will use during battle. To stop the destruction of the city, you have to defeat this monster, but it will not be easy. The Phantom Fox activated the beast's necromancy ability and began to attack with level 30 phantoms. This is such a fantasy awaits us, it is getting very hot, and now we will witness an incredible battle. Betty was very frightened when she saw that the fox called a large number of phantom monsters to help him. She understood that destroying the city and killing innocent people brings only joy to these monsters. Charles realized that it was time to take control of the situation. He ordered the girls to immediately take the wounded to a safe place. Betty began to worry about Charles, but the boy replied that everything was fine and he would try to defeat the monster on his own. It was hard for her to come to terms with it when Charles starts to play the role of the hero, and she wants to do the opposite even more. That is why Betty understood that she could not allow Charles to risk his own life alone. She turned back and said that they and Mila would help Charles destroy the phantoms and Morpheus should take care of the wounded. This bald exorcist was shocked by the behavior of these young adventurers who thought it was absolute madness. He understood that this monster was level 55, and if reinforcements did not arrive in time, they would all die. It seems that all these problems did not interest Charles and the girls at all. For them, risking their own lives already seemed like something ordinary. The guy said he was leaving the phantoms for Betty and Milo, a true example of gentlemanly behavior. So while the girls fight against the high-level phantoms, Charles will take it upon himself to take down the boss. The Phantom Fox activated a ghost beast roar, hardly an ability created solely for intimidation. A little later, it became clear that it helps to move other objects. Morpheus was shocked to see the area of application of the monster's skill. He had never heard of it even in books. The Phantom Fox was preparing to attack and destroy everyone who stood in its way. This is not exactly the kind of fox they tell about in fairy tales. Although danger loomed for Charles, the boy continued to remain calm and in control of his body and mind. Mila and Betty were worried about their friend. They understood that Charles could not lose this battle. An incredibly strong aura emanates from this monster, even though it is not even using its full strength to its maximum. It seems that the Phantom Fox is playing with its rivals like children. Charles wasn't going to wait until he was crushed by huge rocks. It was time to show some gravity tricks. Morpheus was surprised. He had never seen such fast movements and such a talented adventurer. He didn't know that Charles had too much experience in speed fights where people's lives were decided. Probably the boy's past life, which he spent with the thief class, benefited him. This experience is priceless. Phantom Leaf also looked quite surprised when he saw this young adventurer's technique. Charles looked satisfied. He confidently looked at the monster and said that his spells do not work on wizards. Teasing a Phantom Fox is a form of mental retardation. Charles probably didn't know about it. But he activated partial gravity and forced the monster to settle for a dinner of rocks. The Phantom Letter had never seen such insolence. He was angry that these children were not taught to respect adults. As soon as Charles realized that his opponent was able to distract himself for a few seconds, he immediately activated the gravity bomb. Morpheus continued to marvel at the boy's technique. It looked incredible. Compared to a rank B adventurer, Charles single-handedly destroyed the boss of the 55th level rift. Morpheus was sure that one day this boy would become the strongest adventurer in the world. If you kill the boss, the rift should close, and all the other monsters should disappear immediately. Betty said that they don't have time and Charles must kill this bastard for good. The boy prepared his sword for battle and promised that he would now destroy this red-haired nothing once and for all. The Phantom Fox was still alive, although badly wounded, and became enraged and began to attack the boy with stones. This beast is really huge and strong, but when it attacks, it completely loses control. Charles was certain that without control, the monster had no chance of victory. It was time to send him to hell. The boy activated double gravity and began to attack the opponent with his own weapon, huge stones. Such tricks could not please the Phantom Fox. He was losing his mind with rage at Charles. But even when the guy is in the air, he's still very dangerous with dual gravity. This skill of a true master of gravity is always useful. It seems that the fox has completely lost its advantage. Compared to other humanoid bosses, this boss is much weaker. But Through realized that he will not be able to finish this fight too quickly, although some moments looked illogical. Vija's demonic fox is level 55, although Charles is currently only level 38. Charles was starting to run out of mana. He knew it wouldn't be easy, but considering the difference in levels, he was still lucky. The boy had not yet been harmed by the monster's attacks, but if he continued to mindlessly lose mana, the fox would soon destroy him. Charles must not waste his mana level during the fight, but this is impossible because without it there will be no victory. He started thinking about asking Betty and Milo for help. They always fight better together. But the boy quickly realized that the girls are fighting with phantoms, and therefore they cannot be distracted from this process. Until now, they are busy helping the wounded and defenseless. Based on his past life, Charles learned to predict the possible endings of a fight. The boss has very similar attacks, but also a lot of health, which he can restore due to auto attacks. It will be very lucky if only he dies, although it will be sad to die in such a place. But if Charles continues to delay, no one will be able to stop the disaster. The boy understood that he could not run away and leave everyone else to fend for themselves. There was no other way for him. That is why Charles tried to concentrate and make one last attempt to achieve the desired victory. He must use his powers effectively and dodge to save others. Now is the moment when Charles must be much more aggressive and angry than before. His first attack was quite successful. He was able to seriously injure one of his opponent's heads. This angered the Phantom Fox, and he decided to activate the beast's demonic art skill again. After that, he didn't stop and continued to scare Charles with his tricks. He activated the demonic beast's growl. The Phantom Fox began to use skills too aggressively. It is not the kind of beast that only one adventurer can defeat. Betty understood that her friend could not win alone. He urgently needed help. Mila did not understand. Charles is at this moment driven into a dead end, but for some reason does not want to retreat. One gets the impression that the boss of the Rift of the Beast Mausoleum is afraid of him, although how is that possible? The Phantom Beasts have already begun their attack on the young adventurer. Now it will be even more difficult for him than before. Charles realized that it was time to fully focus on inner strength. After a little meditation, he moved forward and began to attack all his enemies as if he had become immortal. There was too much blood around. Books will be written about this legendary battle, and legends will be told to children. Morpheus has never seen such a terrible and frightening power before. This young adventurer is a real monster. Charles quickly destroyed the Phantom Beasts and turned all his attention to the main opponent. As soon as he found his weak point, he immediately disappeared from his sight with the help of double gravity. Charles realized that he had to end this fight with one blow and activated his crown weapon, Comet Fall. It was a brutal killing of the Phantom Fox, but this red-haired boy deserved such a fate. Everything around immediately began to change. The Phantom Fox disappeared into a black hole. It is unlikely that we will ever see it again. The disaster that destroyed the city for many hours was also stopped. This Armageddon is finally over. Charles was happy. It was a wonder that he survived at all, but for killing such a strong opponent, he increased his level by 6 steps. He also gained 6,500 experience points and 23 skill points for this legendary battle. The phantoms summoned by the boss of the rift immediately disappeared with the closure of the rift. The other monsters should have disappeared as well. It seems that now you can sleep peacefully, although the chances of victory were minimal. But they did it. Mila immediately ran to congratulate Charles on the victory. Now her friend is at the 44th level of combat skills. Betty was the only one who didn't look happy at this moment. She stood still and looked very gloomy. It is unlikely that it has anything to do with Charles. We will talk about their potential romantic relationship later. At that moment, the girl realized that she became a hero who protected many lives. Her father could be proud of her. Morpheus was the most surprised. This exorcist still could not believe that Charles could defeat the boss on his own. He looked at this young adventurer in surprise and could not understand who he was. A few hours later, Charles, Mila, and Betty returned to the Adventurers Guild. Jessica congratulated Charles and the girls and thanked them for their help in closing the dangerous rift. She thanked them for saving millions of lives and said that without them, the situation could have gotten out of control. Everyone around only talked about them. It was strange to hear that 3 young adventurers saved the whole city. Mila was still upset. She got the impression that Charles did everything himself and she was ashamed of it. Charles reassured his girlfriend and said that he would not have been able to kill the boss without their help because it was the girls who distracted the phantoms at a critical moment. Betty, in turn, replied that she completely agreed with this, and that they achieved victory thanks to female support. Charles smiled and said that the girl probably regrets not being able to record a video of the fight and post it on her channel. The girl smiled and answered that she was actively fighting with phantoms and could not think about the channel, especially the need to help the wounded. The vice president of the guild did not expect that the disaster would happen immediately after his conversation with Edward. Even a special group could not solve the fault problem. Fortunately, young adventurers saved the city. Without them around, the guild would hardly have been able to stop this threat, so Charles and his team deserve credit. Seeing Charles, the vice president took a closer look at this guy. He had already seen him somewhere before. A little later, he remembered that this was the same boy that Edward was talking about, a young adventurer who was trying to raise his rank. It's very strange. Thanks to such a young guy, a whole city was saved. It's even hard to believe it. Michael smiled and understood that future legends of the world of adventurers were being born before his eyes. Meanwhile, not only interesting events took place in the guild, you should also visit the city's central hospital. One unpleasant guy survived this disaster. He seems to be very angry. Edward woke up in the hospital and couldn't remember what happened after the moment when the Rift Boss started controlling his mind. Only a little later he remembered that this bastard Charles cut off his hand, the hand of a rank B adventurer. Edward was incredibly angry to hear that Charles had now become a national hero. He promised to make the boy's life hell and use his position and influence to teach him a lesson. Meanwhile, the exorcist Morpheus entered his room and called him an ungrateful scumbag. Morpheus explained that during the battle for the city, they wanted to kill Edward when the boss controlled his mind. But Charles saved the adventurer. Edward began to scream and said that he would never thank the person who cut off his arm. Edward got very angry and told them to leave, but Morpheus said he had to meet someone. He ordered the young man into the room. Edward immediately recognized him. It was John. He used him and his brother as bait to distract the Rift Boss, but John managed to survive. Morpheus said that he now knew that Edward was manipulating the minds of his subordinates for his own benefit. Using psychic acting skills without permission is a criminal offense, especially to save one's own life. There is no way that a B-rank adventurer who signed a military contract with the guild could not know the laws of Rift crimes. Edward was incredibly angry and understood that his situation was now even more critical than after losing his arm. A few days later, Charles rested and returned to the Adventurers Guild. He applied for a promotion again, but Jessica again turned him down. The girl explained that the rules are stricter when the rank is increased, so in case of refusal, you cannot immediately submit a second application. For this, you need to wait at least 3 months, but Charles was angry. For him, it was a shock. He is currently at the 44th level and has fulfilled all the conditions to increase his rank. The boy realized that in 3 months the Library of Secrets will be completely wiped out and he will not be able to get the same rare item. It is 3 months that you have to wait to reapply for promotion. All this happened because of Edward. Milo interceded for the boy. She said that Charles became a hero who saved the city from disaster. She also reminded him that he defeated a rank B adventurer when he was under enemy control. Jessica explained that Edward was fired because he broke the rules of the contract. Now his opinion does not affect Charles's promotion. The guy realized that he has fewer and fewer chances to raise his rank in the near future. Despite the fact that the Ring of Wisdom can affect the future of this world, he has to come up with another way to get it. At this moment, the vice president of the guild approached the young adventurers. Michael greeted the young heroes and asked them what they were talking about. As soon as he heard this interesting and tense dialogue, he immediately decided to join. Charles also wondered why the vice president of the guild decided to join their conversation. Michael recognized this guy and, looking at Jessica, said that he supports the promotion of adventurer Charles. This was very unexpected even for Charles himself. He could not have foreseen such a turn of events. Jessica was also shocked. She replied that you can't do that, even though the adventurers didn't agree with some of the rules before. She said that this may affect the general dissatisfaction, and the president of the guild is also unlikely to support this decision. Michael replied that they could not ignore the boy's heroism in clearing the recent breach. The vice president personally conducted an investigation into the disaster and knows what he is talking about. He also learned that the reason for the failure of the exam for promotion was not Charles's abilities, but Edward's personal hatred. That's why the guild rules won't be broken, because they should have raised his rank from the start. Although the director of the guild always follows the rules, Michael is sure that he will persuade him to take this step. The vice president will explain that it would be a huge loss for the guild not to promote the boy right now. This is his main task, to support the adventurers, because they are the defenders of the world. The disaster that threatened the city had to be foreseen and stopped by the guild before it caused big problems. First of all, the vice president would like to thank him and his team for stopping this disaster. And in this way, he would like to thank the boy for saving the city. Charles smiled and shook the vice president's hand. Sometimes justice still prevails. Thus, after a few hours, the application for the promotion of the rank of Charles was accepted and supported. Thus, the young adventurer was able to obtain rank B, an incredible achievement in such a short period of time. There are not so many adventurers with such a high rank in the guild. You can count them on the fingers of your hands. Compared to his past life, Charles reaches new ranks with incredible speed. Although you can quickly level up by fighting higher-level enemies, the results are still incredible. Mila was surprised to see that Charles looked quite upset after his promotion. He replied that everything is fine with him, but he only thinks about the difficult situations that await them ahead. The events of this timeline are incredibly fast, such as the appearance of a rank B fault. This rift could have destroyed the city, but it was quickly stopped. In Charles's past life, such a disaster had never happened. Going back in time, his actions greatly affected the events of this timeline. It's very interesting. Faults are events that do not lend themselves to logic. They appear unexpectedly. Perhaps that is why this fault appeared, even if it was not there in the past life. At first, Charles did not think that it could have such a strong influence on this timeline. It is the butterfly effect. As if small changes in the world lead to incredibly large consequences. Charles looked very excited and couldn't understand why he was so excited. It is a very bad habit to constantly think about negative options. It takes too much energy. But be that as it may, Charles and his team achieved their goal and he was able to get rank B. Suddenly, the boy's phone rang and he saw a new message. A new fault had appeared. The boy immediately rejoiced and realized that this crack in the library of secrets had finally appeared. The information about the rift was released just a couple of minutes ago. Thanks to the vice president of the guild, Charles can clear this rift. The boss of this dungeon will drop a ring of wisdom. With this item, you can unlock the secret of the rifts. Now it will become clear why rifts appear in the world, but to enter this rift, you need to have at least rank B. Charles looked at the Milo and said that it was time to submit an application to clean up this fault. In the meantime, you need to move to another place for a while and listen to a rather important conversation. An adult man was sitting in a large and wealthy office. He was talking to someone on the phone. He already knew that in the future there should be a B-rank rift, a library of secrets. The items that fall from his boss will be very dangerous, and they cannot allow these items to fall into the wrong hands. The person with whom this man spoke said on the phone that this fault must be captured. But the owner of this cabinet replied that then various bad rumors would start, so someone must be the first to enter this rift. This will divert unnecessary attention, and for this there are several interesting options. You need to find the right puppet. This man was worried that his identity and intentions would not be revealed. He needs those who will not be able to manipulate him in the future. He said that as soon as the portal is opened, it is necessary to immediately call the bell of the Chimera. It is necessary to destroy the boss and all his items, as well as eliminate all adventurers in the rift. After that, pretend it's all just an accident. Journalists don't have to find out the truth. That was the end of the conversation, and someone entered the office. It was a young assistant. He reported that he had received a report from the special unit regarding the recent disaster. As it turned out, the owner of this cabinet is the president of the special unit, Master Judas. Meanwhile, Charles and Milo had already left the guild and boarded the train. The girl actively asked questions about this fault. She wanted to prepare well for cleaning. Charles said that this rift is like a huge library, and all the monsters inside use magic attacks. The boss from the Library of Secrets is at level 6, so you have to be very careful with such an opponent. Mila began to worry when she heard about the level of the boss, but Thru answered that he was sure that they would be able to win. He assured that he had prepared a winning strategy and everything should go well. But from the very beginning, he had problems soon. He heard that their application for cleaning the fault was not accepted. Such an order came from the guild, unfortunately. Access to the Library of Secrets is limited. The woman explained that the young adventurers came from another department and did not understand anything. Recently, many adventurers have died in their area, and now the rules have changed. If an adventurer finds a rift and dies, the guild president will be blamed, which is why so many bans have been created now. Charles replied that ignoring the rifts would only make matters worse, but high-ranking lawyers should prevent disasters. The registrar looked at the young adventurers and assessed their level. Charles had only recently been ranked B. Mila was still unranked. She explained that entering a dangerous rift is out of the question, but another character joined them. It was a tall man with blonde hair. He asked Charles if they really wanted to get into the library secret. It was Dr. Christopher, an adventurer who is at the 43rd level. He also has a B rank. There are very few high-ranking adventurers in this area. He said he also wants to clear this rift. If they can get a large group together with Christopher and his friends, then they can be allowed into the rift. Charles promised the sweetie that she would level up before they entered this rift. But if high-ranking adventurers go with them, he won't have to worry about the safety of the Emil. This Christopher guy looks very suspicious. Charles is not sure if he can be trusted. Mila began to smile and said that they should all go into this rift together. Christopher said he wanted Charles to join their team and they would try to clean up the rift. But that was not all. Christopher said that he wanted to clear the portal but did not want to take extra people with him. He looked at Milo and said that all the monsters in the rift use magic, so the girl will not be needed. Moreover, the more people there are, the more difficult it will be to distribute the loot they receive. Mila was upset but agreed with his words, but Charles replied that he would not go anywhere without her. Christopher believed that this stubbornness could only hinder their future cooperation. He explained that his team already has 2 first-class adventurers and they all want to clear the rift. Charles explained that the shaman class will not be superfluous for the team. Mila knows how to replenish mana with the help of her skills. For such people who are very dependent on mana, such as a gravity master or a doctor, such an ally is indispensable. Without thinking long, Christopher agreed and said that he would not mind if Milo went with them. They exchanged phone numbers, and as soon as Christopher talked to the rest of the team, he would call right away. If they all come to a common decision, then an application for access to the portal will be submitted immediately. If all goes well, they should meet at the entrance to the rift. Mila looked upset as usual. She wasn't sure that taking her with her was a great idea. Because of this unpleasant guy, she got the impression that he despises her. Thru agreed that Christopher is really unpleasant, but he can be useful for them. In any case, it's good that they said their terms right away. He looks like a leader who doesn't like unnecessary conflicts. Charles promised to protect the girl if he started saying something like that again. In any case, they are in no position to refuse such an opportunity. If there are more of them, then the chance of getting the Ring of Wisdom will decrease. But this is nothing compared to the fact that they may not enter the rift. It will be easier for them to defeat the boss with a large team. The strategy of victory will become simpler. Meanwhile, Christopher met with his team members and told them that their plans had changed. A level 40 adventurer, Lila was unhappy. She was against the idea of taking unnecessary trash with her. Christopher explained that they have no choice. Their team is short of people, and without this they cannot get permission to enter the rift. Lila didn't understand why they needed a support wizard and a shaman. It would only help in close combat. Christopher explained that the level of this guy is quite high and his girlfriend is needed for insurance. Mila was glad that they would be able to enter the rift, but she didn't like that everyone around them was too tense. She had thought that Christopher would be the main problem before, but she had never been so wrong. Lila immediately told them that if they did not help, she would kill them personally. Charles behaved calmly as usual and replied that they would certainly help during the cleaning. It's time to ask the opinion of the last member of the team, Richard, a 45th level adventurer. The guy replied that he doesn't care if these two help to enter the rift, then he doesn't mind their presence. Charles understands that all members of the team are at a high level, but at the same time, he felt the tension within their team. In the clearing, in the first days of the rift, there are great privileges. It will be possible to sell information about the guild rift. The appearance of a new rift is always a hot topic for discussion, and the first adventurers entering the rift receive rare items. Although the team is quite unpleasant, Charles and Milo still have no choice. Christopher admitted that their team was created very hastily and they may have conflict situations. But adventurers of such high ranks rarely gather together, so they are doomed to success. There is greed, arrogance, and audacity in this team, but Charles hopes that their journey into the rift will go smoothly. The team gathered and went to the secret library. The most interesting is ahead. Christopher walked in front as the real leader. Charles and Milo were at the very end. Now it became clear to them what one of the rank B elite rifts looks like, although everything around is quite simple. Rifts of this rank are very rare. Christopher already dreamed of clearing it and making money from it. Now Charles understands that it will be very difficult to get the ring, but everything is possible. Lila reminded that Christopher called Charles and Milo with him only to get permission to clean. Mila was displeased. It seems that this bunch of fools does not understand how strong Charles is. Charles said that they have come a long way and will not leave empty-handed. This made Lila very angry. The guy said that he remembers their agreement well. If he doesn't do anything, then he won't get anything. Lila arrogantly turned away from him and said that she did not need unnecessary scenes with conversations about nonsense. Milo began to get the impression that they were getting nothing at all, especially the desired ring. Charles said that this topic also worries him, but now they should focus on the future strategy. The Library of Secrets cannot be easily cleaned, only thanks to the knowledge from the past life. Charles imagines what he will have to face. The structure of the vault can change at the will of his boss. It is very difficult to predict everything for the future. Meanwhile, Christopher took one of the library books to read. He had never seen such a language before. This book was written as if in hieroglyphs. Perhaps this is the knowledge of a race unknown to mankind. All items in this rift, with the exception of those dropped by the boss or his assistants, cannot be taken out of the rift. In the future, scientists will study the rifts from the perspective of culture and art, although little is understood from those studies. Scientists have not been able to find out what language the authors of these mysterious books use. There are many different guesses and theories about this language and culture, but these are only theories. The Ring of Wisdom in the Library of Secrets. They say that this item can answer all the secrets of the rifts. Charles was sure he could get this ring, but first he had to destroy the boss. Suddenly there was an explosion of fire. Christopher immediately began to use the shield skill. He managed to defend himself from an unknown attack. It seems that their test in this rift has already begun. The first opponent for the new team of adventurers will be the Librarian, a monster of level 40. Richard immediately got down to business and used the death grip technique. Now we're going to see what this guy is capable of. Judging by the fact that he cut off the librarian's head with one wave of his hand, we can conclude that Richard is quite a strong adventurer. Although Charles did not show too much emotion, it was clear from his eyes that he was surprised at the speed of the monster's destruction. Christopher immediately praised his friend and said that he was incredible, as always. But Richard replied that he did not need showy praise. He looked at the new team members and ordered them to do at least something. Leela started to smile and said that this is how adventurers should do their job. Mila replied that Leela didn't do anything at all. It looks like women's fights are waiting for us. Lila offered her rival to fight and find the strongest. Mila immediately apologized. Charles realized that his teammates quickly assess the situation and know how to use their skills correctly and effectively. It deserves respect, but the boy realized that it reminded him of something. He took a closer look at Richard and realized that he had already seen this guy somewhere. Mila began to worry that Charles would start fighting with other team members for her sake. The girl overestimates the guy too much. He didn't even think about fighting against Richard. After seeing the deadly rapture and the severed head of the monster, he realized that Richard has the thief class, just like he did in his past life. Richard deliberately stepped behind him because he understood that the monster was going to hit in a straight line and immediately cut off his head. If Richard wants to achieve more, he needs to improve his stealth skill. Also advised him to mix the class with the magic support class, or learn the lure skill. Charles is sure that with the help of these skills, Richard will be able to achieve a lot. Richard replied that Charles is a fool who has not been asked for advice, and he is in his own class without saying a word. If it happened again, Richard promised to cut off Charles's head. He does not understand that the thief will become an unnecessary class in the future. If nothing is done, then Richard will lose everything. Charles does not want anyone to repeat his fate, although now his words seem foolish because thieves are now in fashion. Richard is one of the best adventurers of his rank in the country, but once upon a time, Charles was also the best thief-class adventurer. But it doesn't matter now. What happened in the past remains in the past. Christopher said that this rift contained many useful items, but Richard told him to shut up. While Christopher praised his aggressive friend, something appeared in the room. This is a 45th level clockwork rabbit, frankly. It looks like a child's toy. If it didn't look like a rabbit, but this little toy has a higher level than a librarian. Charles did not understand where this rabbit came from. It is one of the rare bosses that destroyed many adventurers in the past. Charles said that it will not be easy to defeat this demon and it is better to find another way. It will not attack unless provoked. Richard replied that if Charles is afraid, then he is ready to personally destroy this little doll. It became clear from the look on Charles's face that this was a big mistake. His experience is now crucial. If Richard activates the skill of the clockwork rabbit, then he will be very difficult to defeat. If this small and fluffy beast did not look, but surely it is really a very powerful monster. Richard drew his weapon and ran to attack the clockwork rabbit. Charles tried to stop him and explained that the rabbit was deliberately luring him into his trap. It was too late to stop Richard. This aggressive boy had already started attacking the clockwork rabbit. But in a few seconds, he felt what real speed was. He wondered what kind of monster it was. Until now, Richard did not understand why a monster that only evades and does not attack at all is needed. It seemed to him that the clock rabbit decided to escape with the help of its speed. Only a little later, the boy realized that this could be a rare boss because his behavior pattern is too strange. Now that they have drawn the monster's attention to themselves, there will be no escape. It is too late. Charles understood that he would have to fight and told everyone around him that his main skill as a monster is speed, and you need to cover each other. He told everyone that losing his vigilance even for a second was tantamount to death, although so far he was looked upon as a fool. Christopher understood that the rabbit was at the 45th level, but still there are 5 of them. Together they should easily defeat him. A little later, Christopher realized that this clockwork rabbit could manipulate space. Richard replied that he was not going to listen to a guy who was several levels below him. Richard warned that the one who would order him would lose his head, but he underestimated Charles's knowledge too much. The clockwork rabbit activated some looking-glass magic. Books started falling off the shelves. Some of these books turned out to be real monsters at the 42nd level. They are called grimoires. It was at this moment that some of the team members realized that they were in real trouble. The clockwork rabbit, on the contrary, enjoyed the process and smiled. Charles once again turned to Richard and told him to retreat immediately because it would be very difficult to win. It seems that this fool does not know how to listen to the advice of others. Let's see where this will lead him. The grimoire is not an easy walk for any adventurer, especially if there are several of these monsters. So far, Richard manages to dodge their attacks and strike back, but will he last long? Leela and Christopher began to worry about their friend. There are too many enemies around him. The rabbit realized that it was his time to attack. This little toy also knows how to fight. Now the clockwork rabbit no longer looks like a child's toy. Now it is a real tyrant rabbit. Richard began to worry. Now this monster is not running away from him, but on the contrary is looking for a meeting. The impudent adventurer was preparing for death, but luckily for him, Charles was nearby and came to the rescue. It was very close to the end. And gravity magic is a very powerful and underrated thing at this time. Charles grew up watching Jackie Chan cartoons. He learned many tricks from it. As long as he knows how to control gravity, no one can defeat him in the air. Judging by the rabbit's face, he is quite upset. His plans to destroy the adventurers are postponed for now. Richard felt that he was close to death, but Charles was able to predict the unexpected attack of the monster and saved his life. Now Richard will take much more seriously even monsters that look like children's toys. The clockwork rabbit will never attack directly. Its tactics are incredibly simple. Attack one target and then retreat. Charles said that he would now stop the 3 grimoires, and everyone else must fight the 4th. Christopher thought it was madness, even though they showed themselves weak in the last battle, but they are also adventurers who should be trusted. Charles replied that a mistake could cost everyone their lives, so Christopher and the team should listen to what he has to say. Clock Rabbit is not only fast, but also cunning. It will always be difficult with such an opponent. It's impossible to stay calm with him, especially when you don't have enough experience in clearing faults. Richard has lost all his confidence in his abilities, and Lila begins to panic. As for the doctor and the shaman, they won't be able to help us unless everyone else pulls together. Lila thought that Charles had lost his mind. Fighting 3 high-ranking monsters at the same time was crazy. But Mila completely trusted her friend. If Charles says so, then she is sure that everything will be fine. She also decided to say a few loud words of her own. She ordered everyone to calm down and help Charles. It was not expected to hear such words from this girl, but she was absolutely right. These nasty monsters move quickly through the air. They have a long attack range and high magic damage. In addition, you can't relax your attention with them, otherwise the clockwork rabbit will immediately attack you. Now, the boy's position is much more critical than during the war with monsters in the city. This is not a battle in which Charles can afford to make mistakes or underestimate the enemy. The boy concentrated completely and ordered all the monsters to attack so that he could cut them into 1,000,000 pieces. The clockwork rabbit was only glad to hear such words from his potential victim. The toothy books also immediately began to attack. Now, we are in for a real spectacle in the rift of the mystery library. Christopher decided to be the first to help his new friend and activated the protection technique. The actions of this tall guy must be noted because the defensive technique really helps in difficult situations. After that, Lila also went on the attack. What she hates most in life is when she is underestimated. The girl looked very aggressive and began to destroy her evil enemies. Her scythe is a real danger for anyone. But she mustn't forget about this devilish clockwork rabbit, because she will have to pay dearly for it. This rabbit has high attack power, magic damage, and also the ability to move freely in the air. Charles also continued his battle against the monsters. If not for the help of others, it is unlikely that he would still be alive. Although the toothed books look quite small, they are capable of inflicting serious damage. Now let's see how they stop the gravity reduction and the lightning attack of the Gravity Master. Charles skillfully switched between his combat modes and attacked with different abilities. And of course, at the end, it was time for the Comet Fall crowning technique. It was incredibly effective as always. He destroyed the first monster and received 2,015 experience points. Not a bad addition for a book thief. But defeating one monster is not enough, so you must not stop and continue as Milo does. While the girl activated her power of the Ball of Darkness, Richard joined the fight and began to deliver instant blows with his sword. In this way, 2 book monsters were already defeated, a good joint work for a new team. Of course, the Clockwork Rabbit was not happy with the actions of his book assistants. He wanted to destroy his enemies, and that is why he used Alice's magic. The Clockwork Rabbit can only manipulate 4 grimoires. Probably he decided to call 2 more to replace the dead ones. If this continues, this battle may last forever, or until the young adventurers die. As soon as they kill the book monsters, this eared beast will immediately summon their replacement. Lila was incredibly angry and said that she would destroy all the monsters around. Charles, meanwhile, ordered to work together with the protection of Christopher. These advices of the guy made Lila even more angry. She felt that he considered them weak. The girl was sure that she alone could destroy all these monsters. But the Clockwork Rabbit still hasn't shown its rivals its full potential. He began to make the same sounds as last time during his attack. Probably he had chosen a victim for his future attack. Christopher realized that now the Clock Rabbit would take advantage of the fact that they were all too busy with other monsters. He ordered Lila to run away immediately, but one of the monsters decided to detain the girl. The toothy book bit her stomach and knocked her to the ground. At this rate, she might die soon. Charles said that as long as he was around, no one would die, and again came to the rescue. The book monster has grabbed the girl too tightly, so there is only one way to help. A gravity bomb. It was a very strong explosion that helped tear the book monster away from Lila, but the girl also felt a gravity bomb on her. She was thrown several meters back and her whole body began to hurt, but Charles still saved her. If it weren't for him, she would have become dinner for a book monster a long time ago, but now she is under attack again. Charles realized that she will not be able to stop the monster without his help. It seems that now she is the weak link in the team. Charles immediately called a doctor and ordered him to quickly save and treat Lila. The strike force of the team can no longer fight, only Charles remains, and this is a real problem. At this rate, they could all be dead in a few hours. That's what happens when you piss off the Clockwork Rabbit. Charles thought that nothing was over yet. Alice's magic was taking too much mana from the rabbit. If they destroy the book monsters one by one, sooner or later they will win. And the rabbit also understands this very well. Charles understood that they needed to be patient in this battle. He activated the double gravity and continued to destroy the enemies. The body of these book monsters is quite strong, and their mouths are protected by sharp teeth, which causes more problems than anything else. One of the monsters grabbed Charles's sword. If he can take it and break it, then the adventurers will have almost no chance to save themselves. Charles realized that it was necessary to immediately activate the gravity bomb and make the monster regret his decision. This helped to completely tear the book monster into 1,000,000 pieces, for which 800 experience points were obtained. Mila was happy with this small victory. She said that in this way you can defeat all their rivals. But Christopher replied that it was too dangerous. Also, with these actions, Charles became the main target for the enemies. Now they will focus all their attention on him and will attack without stopping. While the book monsters were attacking Charles, the Clockwork Rabbit was waiting for the perfect moment to launch a lightning attack. As soon as this eared beast began to attack, Charles immediately activated the double gravity. He once again predicted all the actions of the opponent. With the help of double gravity, Charles was able to dodge all of his opponent's attacks. Even if Charles can destroy the remaining monsters, it cannot be called a final victory. The monsters decided to use a surprise attack. They teamed up and cornered the boy, but they also have blind spots. This is why their plan failed. But if Charles continued to attack the rabbit, the book monsters would attack him from both sides. This eared beast is really smart. It perfectly chooses the moments to attack and is constantly covered by book monsters. This once again proves why he is a very rare monster boss. To destroy him, you need to act extremely fast. Charles looked very determined, but determination alone will not be enough to defeat such an opponent. The boy began to attack the rabbit with his sword, but with the help of extreme speed, the monster was able to dodge in time. Now, Charles felt what it's like when your opponent is incredibly fast. Usually, Charles's opponents feel it. The guy was trying to put all his strength into speed, which is why he was trying to attack horizontally. But it would be much more effective to strike vertically. It is very difficult to fight against a small and mobile monster. It was difficult not only for Charles. For example, Richard at that moment almost lost his arm due to the attack of the book monster. Mila and Christopher were also in a critical situation. So far, only the power of the shield was saving them. They can't delay time or they will eventually be dragged into the looking-glass space and then no one will get out of there. They need to destroy the clockwork rabbit as quickly as possible, but talking is one thing, action is another. There's almost no point in running after this little creature. It is too cunning and fast and knows every corner around it. Charles activated the gravity bomb again, but the clockwork rabbit escaped again using the rabbit run. You could see how this little rascal was taunting his enemies. Was he really having a lucky day today? But even the happiest day in life ends sooner or later. Another gravity bomb is near. This time the furry beast did not have time to dodge. It is unlikely that he will now smile while looking at Charles. It's the guy's turn to taunt the enemy. No one will be able to dodge several gravity bombs in a row. Each high-speed skill has its own weakness. The rabbit run has a short distance, and at the end, the monster becomes too vulnerable. All Charles had to do was time it perfectly and deliver the decisive blow with his skill. Although the rabbit tried to have the last word, Charles reached a completely different level of martial arts. In this way, the rare clock rabbit was destroyed. Now Charles is level 45. He also received 2,500 experience points. Now it was all over and the team of adventurers was able to get out of the looking glass. All the book monsters were destroyed automatically. Mila was happy that everything was finally over. It seemed that this battle could last forever. But not all members of the team of adventurers looked satisfied and happy. For some reason, Lila was upset and tears appeared on her face. Did she fall in love with a rabbit? The girl started screaming and said that she was not crying at all. It was just dust that got into her eyes. While Lila was taking acting classes, Christopher approached Charles and thanked him for the win. Christopher was sure that he had assembled a powerful enough team to clear the rift. He had never been so wrong. Suddenly, the boys saw strange black smoke coming out of one book. It looks like some kind of black magic. Charles immediately picked up this book and began to analyze it. It could be something very important. As it turns out, it's a secret boss rare item, Clockwork Rabbit Skill Guide, Rank B. This is a guide to additional skills of the monster. Depending on the class of the adventurer, it can help a lot. It also turned out that this book costs a lot of money. Christopher already mentally began to share the profit. But then he thought about it and said that it was better to get out of this rift immediately. He underestimated the library of secrets too much. Christopher used up all his mana and also noticed that Lila was seriously injured during the battle with the monsters. It would be the right decision, but because he can't let someone else take the Ring of Wisdom. The biggest problem of this fault is rabbits. If you ignore them, no new problems should arise. Lila's injury can be quickly healed by Christopher, and you don't have to worry about mana. There is a way to fully restore it. Mila immediately remembered these painful memories of the mana restoration process. She understood what Charles was implying. Librarians often walk alone and have a huge supply of mana, an ideal target for draining energy. Richard said that he also didn't mind continuing to clear the rift. He didn't have any serious damage after the battle. He admitted that Charles is really a strong adventurer. It will be easy to clean up the rift with him, and it would be wrong to refuse it. The only obstacle was Lila. She is not as cool a girl as before. Now she is a scared little child. Lila was one step away from death and now wants to leave. Her fear is understandable. A little later, the girl said that she is not afraid at all and is ready to continue. Let's pretend that we believe her. Other adventurers and exorcists began to gather at the entrance to the rift of the Library of Secrets. A special unit also arrived. They showed their ID and said that a mysterious mission was waiting for them. After a short conversation, the special unit was launched to the crack of the Library of Secrets. Alice couldn't understand why all this caution as she made her way to the middle of the rift. Stephen explained to her that after all that had happened with the faults in the area, such procedures had become necessary. The girl still could not understand why destroy objects from rifts, even without understanding what power they are endowed with. But Stephen replied that he was not interested in these details. Their task was to fulfill the order as members of the Chimera clan. Stephen said it was time to dispel illusions, but Alice called him too boring. He explained to the girl that this is an order from the Chimera clan, and if she wants to live, she must follow this order. They need a lot of power to fight the boss of this rift, so prepare for a serious battle. The two adventurers are by no means weak boys to beat. They are real professionals in their field. Stephen is at the 54th level of training. Alice is now at the 57th level. Meanwhile, a serious battle was taking place inside the rift against a 43rd level book demon. He looked like a real Satan. This big monster with horns and red eyes would scare even the strongest warrior. Charles was very hard to fight, and he ordered Leela to activate and help him. The peculiarity of the book demon is that it can extend its arms and legs as it pleases. It is also not necessary to look him in the eyes. He only enjoys human fear, and this gives him additional strength. For Leela, this is a particularly unpleasant opponent given her weak psyche, which could be seen in the battle against the rabbit. Mila activated her abilities of the Ball of Darkness in time. Altogether, they can be a serious threat to this demon. The girl behaved like a real professional adventurer who is not afraid of anything. She definitely attacked and went forward. Thus, almost single-handedly, the girl was able to destroy the book demon and gain thousands of experience points. During this time, Mila became much stronger, and the battle against the clock rabbit went to her advantage, and the girl raised her level. Her skills become much faster and stronger, but it also causes her mana to drain faster. There are still a few opponents on the way to the boss. If Mila is tired, she can rest. Now we need to solve the main problem, the constant fear of Lila. It cannot continue at the same pace. The girl's afraid of every monster they meet, but constantly says that, in fact, she has nothing to fear. In the very beginning, Leela looked incredibly confident, but now she is nothing compared to Mila. Lila approached Charles and Milo and thanked them for saving her, although she admitted that she would have been dead without their help. Battles with monsters on the way to the boss of the split continued. It was necessary to make a final push. Christopher and Richard did a good job. They also significantly increased their experience and level during this sweep. Charles immediately recognized that the two of them could now defeat many high-ranking monsters. Both Christopher and Richard gained extra confidence from this practice. Richard tried to kill the last monster, but Christopher reminded him that one should be left alive. Charles asked for it, but Richard was so excited that it was difficult for him to stop at the last moment. But still, after all these battles, he came to respect Charles, so he was able to stop himself and let the monster live. The librarian has the largest mana pool of any known local monster, and Milo will be able to drain his energy quickly. Charles was most interested in Richard, although he is the biggest bully of the whole team, but he is a really nice person. Richard always comes to the rescue and follows all team members, covering their backs. Now the process of transferring mana begins. Mila is ready to show everyone how it works. After the mana was transferred to Christopher, the boy began to smile because he realized that he would be able to use his powers to the fullest again. With this useful ability, Mila can explore rifts for days on end without rest. Christopher said that they must catch 2 more monsters so that Charles and Leela can fully recover their powers. Charles explained that mana can be restored, but physical and psychological fatigue still accumulates. Mana transfer is a very useful skill, but it should be used wisely and activated only in critical situations. Christopher thanked for the help. It is only thanks to the shaman's skills that he can continue the sweep. Now they are very close to the middle of the rift. It's time to ask if they are really ready to go after the boss of the secret library. As it turned out, not everyone was happy with this news. Richard, for example, did not expect that he would have to fight the boss right now. Leela was also unhappy with this idea. They barely survived in the past battles, and the battle with the boss seems crazy to her. Charles said that the girl was very scared, and at that moment she immediately said that everything was fine and she was ready to fight. This girl is too easy to manipulate, but what does the doctor think of all this? From the beginning, he was gathering a group to completely clear the rift, but now they have found a lot of resources, so it is not necessary to go any further. Christopher could feel how he was possessed by greed, but should he take such a risk and continue on his way to the boss? Charles told that before entering the rift with the help of a rare item, he had already learned everything he needed about the boss. The boy explained to all the team members that with this information they would easily be able to defeat the boss. Christopher realized that now cleaning the fault looks even more attractive. They are immediately very popular after that. But there is one important condition. For this information, Charles must get all the items that drop from the boss. And all that they collected on the way to the boss, the team members can divide among themselves. He had already discussed the plan with Milo, and she was fine with it, but if that wasn't enough, Charles could pay everyone extra. Christopher immediately thought he really wanted to get the rare items from the boss, but they will get a book with the skills of a clockwork rabbit, and they will be able to split this huge amount of money between the three of them. While this guy was dreaming of huge riches, Leela started yelling at him and told him to come back to the real world. Richard has already agreed to these conditions. It remains to wait for Lila's answer. The girl looked confused, but still, under the pressure of the general opinion, she said that she also agreed. She warned everyone that the whole team should attack the boss or the deal would be broken. But in order to get the desired result, they will have to go through real hell. And the real hell is the boss of the Rift of the Library of Secrets, the 60th level Ether. Soon, a team of young adventurers approached the entrance to the room of the main boss of this rift. Charles asked everyone to act exactly as they agreed. The local boss is not very mobile and not very mobile. If no one panics and everyone sticks to the plan, they will succeed. Christopher was sure that with the help of the plan, they would be able to win easily. After all, they were adventurers, rank B. Only Lila did not believe in these fairy tales, Charles. The subject that allows you to learn everything about the boss is just a joke. Mila reminded her that the girl agreed to all the conditions ahead of time, so there's no need to start panicking. But the panic had already started. Lila said that Charles did not show them this item, so he cannot be trusted. Christopher said that one of the rules of adventurers is not to reveal their strengths and not to show them to other people. Charles saved them more than once along their journey. It is unlikely that the information about the boss is unreliable. Richard also agreed, even if they were being tricked. It would be wrong to turn around and leave when the boss was one step away. The profession of an adventurer is full of danger. If Lila is not ready for it, then it is better for her to change her profession. The girl started screaming and said that she just wanted to check Charles, and in fact she is not afraid, so we believed her. Christopher assured the girl that she had nothing to fear. They would take all the damage and protect her in case of danger. Lila thought that she was being humiliated, but Thru explained that they only want to help and add confidence. Previously, Richard always worried about the girl. She was always like that, and he was already used to her behavior. Richard is not going to blindly trust Charles. He will be careful in the battle against the boss. Before starting, you need to distribute skill points. A lot has already been earned on this path. Charles wanted to raise the level of gravity control, but for the boss battle, it would be better to raise the gravity magic. So he did. With the help of gravity magic, his power would now become even more dangerous. He spent all his experience points on various useful things. Let's see if it helps him during the fight. Now the team is fully prepared to begin the battle against the boss of the Library of Secrets Rift. Charles opened the front door and ordered everyone to ready their weapons. Entering inside, he saw a very spacious room with high windows. He also saw the boss of the Rift of the Library of Secrets. It is a level 60 ether monster. Leela thought that this boss was too scary looking, but he really seemed sluggish. The team was ordered to act according to the plan, so the attack of the adventurers began. Ether was not going to wait until it was destroyed. The thunder attack was activated. Now we will see if the adventurers are ready for such a start of the battle. Will their plan work? Charles expected her to start using lightning and thunder magic. The information from her past life was confirmed. The magic of thunder and lightning has a small radius of action, but the power is incredible, so a special plan was invented for the first stage. Charles started to attack the monster paired with Richard. He was fast due to gravity magic. And due to the thief class, Richard could move as fast as Charles. Ether will not be able to defeat them using only thunder and lightning magic. It will also be very difficult for her to accurately attack guys due to her poor mobility and lack of maneuverability. And the main task is to hit the boss after she uses her skill, then they will be close to victory. The girls also did not stand aside while Mila used the ball of darkness. Leela was already attacking with dangerous blades. The boss of the rift began to be attacked from different sides. It will be very difficult for her to defeat such a large team of adventurers. But this made the heir very angry. She even started to speak and said that no one has the right to attack her. No one expected such a turn of events, especially it made an impression on Milo. Charles understood that the monster aimed at Milo. Now she will try to attack with magic from a long distance. Charles began to order everyone to urgently protect Milo, although Richard did not like to listen to others, but this situation forces him to do so. The boss of the rift activated a wave of fire. It became incredibly hot around as if on the beach of Copacabana. Of course, Lila was the first to panic. She must have wet her pants and dreamed of running away home. It's obvious that Charles wasn't going to run away without a ring of wisdom. If you can't evade, you have to attack back. Christopher temporarily decided to play the main role in this battle. He came to the forefront and told everyone to hide behind him. After the team got behind him, he activated a protective shield against the fire wave. As Charles said, the massive skills of the boss can be easily dispelled by holy magic. Christopher said that everyone can rely on him because he will be able to protect the team from the magic of the ether. Ether cannot move quickly, but it has many powerful spells in its arsenal. That is why you can come up with many strategies against her in which she will not be able to answer the opponent with anything. The plan was simple: to wait for the end of the enemy's attack and deliver a powerful blow in return. Charles promised to cover all the team members and ordered to prepare for the attack. In his mind, Richard admitted that this guy was really smart, but he would prefer to destroy several people with the help of the boss. Richard understood that Charles was really an incredibly capable guy. But if you get rid of him, the whole group will immediately collapse like a house of cards. That was what the thief was thinking about now, although he would rather be analyzing the enemy and using his skills. The battle continued. Charles led the entire team behind him and was the first to attack. All of them need to unite and be a real team to defeat such a strong enemy. Without it, you can't even dream of victory, especially after the ether activated the Sword of Zeus. This ability of hers is especially dangerous if you don't have time to defend yourself or dodge, then only ashes can remain from you. Charles, thanks to his gravity control skills, was quite fast and flexible, which helped him dodge her attacks. Of course, this young adventurer was not going to sit on the defensive forever. It was his turn to strike back. Ether is too slow as expected. Melee is not her strong point, and this should definitely be used. She must have decided to save her ranged attacks for last. You need to hurry and destroy her and finish clearing the rift. Lila realized that this boss can be easily destroyed even by two if you attack only in close combat. And it seemed that this boss was too weak. She behaved too self-confidently for a person who feared this boss more than anyone else. At the very beginning, Christopher agreed that Charles's strategy was too simple to defeat the boss. But in real combat, his tactics work with incredible precision. Exploiting the enemy's weakness and attacking from a close range are very smart. Charles's skills and experience will allow him to defeat this monster. His self-confidence and fearlessness really raise many questions. He looks like an adventurer who has survived many battles. Charles is incredibly calm and accurate in his hands, but will he be able to defend himself against the stone rook? The boy realized that they had to change their battle tactics or they wouldn't be able to get close to their opponent. The stone rook limits the actions of the Mila, thus the ether protects itself from long-range attacks. At the same time, it will be more difficult for Charles and Richard to approach the boss. If they come out of cover, she will immediately start attacking with her magic. Charles ordered all team members to immediately hide behind a stone pillar. Now the battle is in full swing, and the most interesting awaits us. The chances are approximately equal, despite the numerical advantage of the adventurers. Ether built a big wall so that no one could approach her. Lila immediately began to make fun of this act. For this, the ether called her a stupid puppet and prepared to cut off her head, but Lila was able to choose the best position for cover. At least, somewhere, she showed her qualities. Now the ether is completely focused on the other members of the team of adventurers. This gives Charles an opportunity. He starts to pick up speed and immediately apologizes to Lila. The girl still did not understand what he was up to. Maybe he decided to give her to the monster as bait. The boy instantly approached Lila and pushed away from her, although at first it seemed that he had kicked her. It was a very strong push, but it was enough to jump over the stone wall. Now it's clear that he used Lila as a springboard for high jumps. This girl is now even more useful. Ether keeps a close watch on all the team members. She waits for them to come out of cover in an attempt to attack her. But if you use reduced gravity and attack it from above, then it should not have time to react. This is exactly what Charles did. He activated his crown weapon, the fall of the comet, and confidently went on the attack. Although the blow turned out to be quite powerful, it immediately became clear that this was not the end. The Rift boss has too high a defense rating, even more than Charles could have expected. Meanwhile, Richard stood and thought that if he didn't do anything, this battle would end too quickly. In his opinion, Charles shows himself too well in this rift, and he does not like it. Richard wondered if this talented adventurer could defend himself against his attack. While Richard was plotting his devious plan, the boss of the Rift Library of Secrets was also preparing to attack. This girl was enraged by the constant attacks of the adventurers and wanted to tear them into small pieces as soon as possible. Charles saw that she was trying to use Elemental Blast, a mass effect spell that takes a lot of mana. But after this attack, she will be defenseless and Charles will be able to close in for the final blow. If the ether is really trying to use an elemental blast, then Charles needs to act fast. Fortunately, the rest of the team will be able to defend against this attack behind the brick columns. Everything could end with one precise strike, and Charles was completely focused on that. But suddenly he saw a sword flying in his direction. The boy managed to react in time and defend himself. It was an attack by the treacherous rat, Richard. He was surprised to see Charles manage to defend himself and showed an incredible reaction. Richard immediately apologized to the angry Charles and explained that he wanted to kiss the boss. But Charles is not a fool. He was clearly aware that this guy was aiming at him. In any case, he does not have time to fight even against Richard now because the ether is preparing for a strong attack. Convinced that the monster was preparing an elemental explosion, Charles ordered all team members to hide behind the columns. Many of the adventurers did not know what an elemental explosion was, and it sounded quite scary. It is clear that Lila was more scared than anyone, but even Richard started to get nervous. Surprisingly, Mila remained calm and confident. She must have really progressed a lot during this time. Elemental Blast is a spell that fires a hail of magic bullets at enemies until the ether runs out of mana. But if you bypass all her attacks and deliver a decisive blow, you can finally get the Dream Ring of Wisdom. This was exactly the plan Charles had. He used his speed to start dodging the elemental explosion. The Rift Boss had little health left, but it was still difficult to approach. A similar ether makes everything possible so that no one enters into close combat with it. Richard watched Charles. He admitted that the boy was very strong, but not enough to get close to the boss. He decided to wait hiding behind the column. It would be wiser to wait for the boss to completely use up his mana. But when you're fighting a high-ranking Rift Boss, you can't sit back on the defensive. Ether destroyed one of the brick columns. It seems her attacks are so powerful. Even if Richard will constantly dodge her attacks, he still won't be able to hide in it for long. He believed that Charles had deliberately set them all under attack. Now they had nowhere to run. If Charles is too slow, the ether magic can hurt other team members. The guy realized that he has no time and needs to attack right now. He must get closer to the boss. Lila was nervous, as usual. It seemed to her that Charles had lost his mind and was behaving irresponsibly. So far, Mila has been calmly listening to all this discontent, but a plan has already formed in her head. She plucked up the courage and told all the other team members that they should also approach the boss. The boss of the Rift will not be able to attack them with physical attacks, and this should be taken advantage of. It was much safer to approach a monster than to stand aside, and Charles understood this very well. It seemed to Lila that everyone around had lost their minds. She could not believe that it would be safer to be next to the monster. But Christopher agreed with these words of a sweetheart. They are a team and should help their partner. The doctor admitted that they had relied on Charles for too long, and it was time to thank him. They must help their partner and do everything possible to cover his back. That is why Christopher and the girls immediately ran to help Charles. They understood that it was dangerous, but they were ready to take this mortal risk. It will be difficult for them to evade such powerful attacks. Christopher was the first to understand this. He activated his protective shield in time, which helped him survive the elemental explosion. Although Christopher perfectly understood that he would not be able to hold back such a strong magic for a long time, he ordered the girls to run quickly, and they immediately obeyed his order. Christopher realized that he had not risked his own life for the sake of others for a long time. Christopher said that he will now cover the girls completely, so killing the boss is Charles's task. The boy noticed that the doctor was able to repel the attack of the Rift Boss. This shows his strengths. Charles hoped that the girls had time to hide because now is the perfect moment to attack. You need to concentrate and demonstrate your speed. With Christopher's help, they were able to repel the ether attack, and until it found a new target, it was necessary to act. Charles immediately activated hypergravity, a gravity magic that increases the force of a target's gravitational pressure. This is one of his new abilities that he got with the help of spending experience points. Let's see what it is capable of. For an elemental explosion, you need to hold your hands above your head to aim at the opponent. But under the influence of hypergravity, this will be incredibly difficult to do. And now, the monster will not be able to attack the adventurers. Mila saw that Charles completely deprived the boss of his sorcery abilities. He chose the perfect moment for this. Shadow chains were activated. This technique has already proven itself well in past battles. Although they had never fought such a strong monster before, the ether was not going to give up so easily. This monster cannot be allowed to calmly recover lost mana, or it will be impossible to defeat. The most cowardly member of the team of adventurers decided to forget about fear and go on a desperate attack. Leela ran forward to attack the monster and used the mooncut technique. Looks pretty good. This dealt the boss a breach in the Library of Secrets, probably the first serious wound of the fight. It was a difficult injury. Seeing what happened, everyone around held their breath. Only a little later, it became clear that Lila was able to cut off the monster's hand. She probably had to immediately forget about her fear. This girl has incredible potential, but due to her mental problems, she cannot fully realize it. Charles immediately congratulated the girl on the excellent attack. Even he was surprised by the mooncut technique. The time has come to finish off the wounded beast and activate the double gravity. Now the ether must feel what real pain is. After a few seconds, only ashes and small pieces remained from her. Now Charles is at the 49th level. For 11,000 experience points and 16 skill points, this beast was finally defeated. All team members began to congratulate Charles with an incredibly effective attack. It was in this way that another high-ranking boss of a dangerous and rare rift was destroyed. Finally, Charles will be able to learn all the secrets of the appearance of rifts. He has achieved his goal and found an item that was lost in the first timeline. During the celebration in honor of finding the Ring of Wisdom, only Richard was not happy. All that remains is to get the ring from the remains of the destroyed monster. There should be no problems. A few seconds later, Charles held the Ring of Wisdom in his hands. They destroyed the boss of the Library of Secrets and got what they wanted. The Ring of Wisdom belongs to Rank B. It summons a great witch from the Library of Secrets. Charles also hopes that this ring can provide answers about the origin of the rifts in this world. Mila offered to take this ring to the special unit, but Charles replied that it was a bad idea. Of course this is a bad idea. He fought and risked his life not to give the award to someone else. There are several reasons for this. Firstly, in the past timeline, this ring belonged to the Director of Special Forces and then it was lost. After what happened in the past timeline, Charles can't trust anyone else with the Ring of Wisdom. Also, only a high-ranking adventurer can reveal the true power of the ring. Charles was an S rank in the past, so it's within his power. And the last reason, no adventurer in his right mind will refuse a rare item that was achieved by hard work. Watching her friend, Mila realized that she had not seen Charles so satisfied for a long time. Christopher approached the boy and began to thank him for his boundless heroism. It was with his help that they defeated the ether. As gratitude, he wants to heal the boy's wounds. After all, he is a doctor. Although Charles tried not to fall under the monster's direct attacks, he still has minor injuries. Charles thought that it would be illogical to refuse help and agreed to Christopher's offer. The regeneration process was started with the help of his staff. The doctor began to treat Charles. Christopher thought that he was so lucky for the first time. He had never met an adventurer with such outstanding abilities before. During the process of healing his wounds, Christopher began to recall fragments of the fight against the boss. He always thought only of exploring the portals and not of his allies. But this time, he was inspired by the heroism of Charles, and he is infinitely grateful for meeting such a good guy. At some point in the battle, Lila thought that they would all die today. This cleaning of the fault made her very tired. But everything is not so simple. Richard came here for the rare items of the boss from the portal and is not ready to give them to some fool. The thief decided not to wait any longer for the perfect moment and to start acting immediately. The battle was too intense, and after the victory, the adventurers relax and lose focus. Realizing that there might not be a better moment, Richard began to act and went on the attack. Thanks to the skills of a thief, he can move silently. Also, his class gives a high attack speed. Richard was sure that when he activated the shadow capture, Charles would be headless in no time. He probably doesn't know this young adventurer too well. His talent is something from another world. Even in a relaxed state after a difficult battle, Charles still remained attentive and managed to defend himself from Richard's attack. The thief was surprised. He didn't understand how this guy managed to react and saw the shadow delight. Charles has been keeping a close eye on Richard for a long time now. It's time to act and activate the double gravity. It is necessary to show this thief what real strength and power is and to discourage him from wanting to attack from behind. Richard managed to dodge the first attack. He was very lucky that he did not feel double gravity. Christopher began to panic because he did not understand what was happening. He asked the boys to stop. Charles explained that Richard tried to kill him during the battle. It was clear that sooner or later they would have to fight. Of course, Charles did not expect that the battle would still be in the rift, but one must be ready for anything. Richard barely participated in the battle, so he has enough strength, but Charles also has some mana left. Richard replied that there is no need to worry, because he already got what he wanted from the very beginning. On his hand was the watchman's bracelet, and in his fingers this rat held the Ring of Wisdom. Now it is clear that he never wanted to kill Charles. His goal was always rare items. Christopher was very scared when he saw that Richard had stolen all these important items. This bracelet is very expensive, but inside it is a lot of loot that they collected in this rift. Lila called Richard a piece of shit and ordered him to come to her so she could break all his bones. Of course, this thief started to run away. In order to beat him, you must first catch up. Richard perfectly understood that all members of the team, except for Charles, are at a fairly average level of combat training. He knows that the Charles class also has incredible speed, but can he defeat a high-ranking thief? It was hard for Charles to admit it, but in speed, in this timeline, he can't beat Richard. He could not believe that a rank B adventurer would engage in banal theft of items from his comrades. Richard's whole life was built on blackmail and intrigue. He is not used to it. From the very beginning of his career, he had a bad reputation and no one wanted to do business with him. Richard decided to go to another area in order to find new faults, but even there, everyone knew him. He was known not only for his reputation, but also for his strength, and he thought that the end of his career had come. It was at this moment that he met the stupid and greedy leader of a group of adventurers, and a goofy young guy with useful information about the boss of the Rift Library of Secrets. This is how this team was created, and now it is clear that Richard had prepared insidious plans in advance. Meanwhile, Christopher could not believe that Richard stole all their things and potential profits. Money always worried him more than anything else. Charles apologized to his friends and said that all this happened because of his inattention. They have to capture Richard and give him to the special unit, although he did not kill anyone but stole all the loot of the team. It will be difficult to prove. They are not legally formalized in any way. All this is based on an ordinary verbal agreement. Special forces are unlikely to be able to help, but Charles must immediately return the Ring of Wisdom. Meanwhile, people from the special unit entered the gap. They realized that they were late because of their slowness. Seeing other adventurers, Milo began to call for help. She believed that together they would be able to catch the thief. The girl immediately warned the two that Richard was very dangerous and it was better to run away immediately. As soon as Richard approached these adventurers, he immediately told them to disappear from his path, otherwise they would die. This fool did not understand that these are unusual young adventurers from the guild. They are elite special forces. Stephen and Alice prepared to fight, but Richard was sure that he would easily destroy these homeless people. He is a high-class B-rank adventurer, but Stephen immediately showed him his place. It was a very tough meeting. Now Richard realized that he is not the fastest in this vault. He received several powerful blows and made a hole in the wall with his face. This educational lesson was successful. Now the thief will not underestimate new acquaintances. The girls and Christopher were incredibly scared when they saw how quickly these elite adventurers beat Richard. They knocked him out with one blow. You must find out who they are. These are the same special forces that we have already seen before. Looking at them, Charles thought that he was familiar with this uniform. Alice began to mock Richard. She believed that only 2 weak adventurers could fall with one blow. With this level of training, he has no chance of getting into the special forces. Leela thought that it was all a joke. She could not believe that an adventurer rank would lose this battle so easily. He is one of the best adventurers in his guild and area. Guys like that don't go down after the first hit. After examining Richard's body, the girl found a ring of wisdom. She liked this shiny toy and decided to take it for herself. She began to ask Stephen if she could keep it for herself as a present. The boy analyzed the ring of wisdom and said that it was for him that they came here, but they must destroy this item. Alice wanted too much to take this toy with her. She said that no one would know about it. Stephen replied that she was now on duty, and if she did not follow orders, he would kill her immediately. Christopher decided to approach them. He said that his team is very grateful that they attacked this criminal, Richard.